Hello. Hello. Hi, good morning, guys. I hope now I'm audible. Hi, how are you people? Good? Audible? Yeah. A lot of people are worried about that if the session has started or not. Actually, the session didn't start yet. Now we'll be starting on with the session, all right? Okay. How are you people, by the way? Good? Good. Great. Cool. So if you're ready, we can start on with the session, shall we? I'm good as well. Thank you so much, Saga, for asking. So if you're ready, we can start on, shall we? Cool, great. All right. Okay. So let me actually introduce myself. My name is Arun Kudial. I'm a subject matter expert at Apple Inc. And I'll be the instructor for the day. And we'll be talking about a lot of things. All right. And there are a few things that I just want to like highlight few things here and there. Uh, we'll be discussing a lot of things in the topic, right? In the session, we'll be discussing onto a lot of things. Keep in mind, I know that you'll be having a lot of doubt, and we are going to make the session a lot interactive, so that whatever we are trying to learn out here makes a lot of sense to a lot of people. Okay. Next thing, you can stop me anywhere in the session. You can put your doubts in the chat section. All right, I'll just stop and I'll answer up your doubts. That's completely fine, right? So keep in mind that we'll be doing stuff, we'll be learning a lot of stuff. We'll be discussing the agenda in a little second, but before we actually go around and do that, I just want to give you a little highlight in few things. Just give me 1 second. So before I start on with anything, just wanted to know how many of you are very new to full stack development, or you know, they are learning full stack development for the very first time. Okay. And how many of you are little experienced with full stack development, or maybe anything, maybe front end development, or back end development, or anything? How many of you are like new to, like they have learned something? Okay. Front end development. Okay. Anyone here from the back end development? Oh, full stack development. Great. Great. Front end developer. Okay. So I see a lot of developers. Oh, MERN stack developer. I saw someone. Oh, mean stack developer. Okay. Makes a lot of sense. Did some projects on full stack. Okay, cool. All right. So before we go around and do something, this is the LinkedIn page that you can go around and follow us up. All right. So you'll find out here a lot of different activities going on, like hackathons, quizzes, which includes a lot of, cash prize and stuff. So you can, if you want, the information related to the upcoming future sessions, you can actually go around and follow us up on LinkedIn. I'm just gonna drop down the the link if you're interested in. All right, so don't feel shy. Just go around and follow us, right? And you'll get a lot of information like hackathons, quizzes, future upcoming sessions, or you can even drop down us with the topics that you're interested that we should cater on to with on masterclass. That is something that we can totally can do. Okay. And apart from that, if you're interested, you can connect up with me as well. All right. So you can, if let's suppose you want to like talk about something, or just, you want to inquire about something, you can actually drop me a text just in case. If you're interested, you can connect me out. All right. And this is my LinkedIn. Okay, cool. So great. So let me actually, okay, just again, a quick thing. I believe, okay, just give me a quick yes for the people. Q&A automation. Like, oh, okay. Yeah, that is something that we can do. All right. So again, just a quick question. How many of you are like new to all of these things? Because if there are a lot of people, I'll give you a little handsome of an idea, and then we'll start on, and then we'll discuss onto the agenda, and then we'll do something quickly. New people? New to full stack, new to web development. Okay. All right. Okay. So actually, let me start on with actually giving you a little idea about full stack development. For the people who have no idea about full stack development, let me actually give you a little idea. So the whole course is called as full stack development. Okay. And when you actually talk about full stack development, there are a lot of different things. A lot of people have a lot of misconception. I'm new to software IT. Okay. Again, you can learn a lot of things. Like web development is a domain where people find themselves very curious to, wherein when you come to like data science, ML, and all of these different things, it actually requires a little prior knowledge of like mathematics and little things like Python and stuff. So that becomes a little difficult. I'll not say it becomes difficult. Again, if you want to like learn data science, ML, that is something that you can totally can do, right? That's completely up to you. But generally I found people coming from a complete different background, and they find themselves very, very comfortable in web development and full stack development. So let me actually give an idea. So when you talk about a full stack development, or when somebody calls himself as a full stack developer, there are two ends for the same, or he should be pretty good with two things. The first part is your front end development, and the another thing is something called as back end development. Okay. Now, sometimes even people do is that they completely try to master onto one complete end, right? Maybe you might have seen a lot of people call themselves as front end developers, or you might have found people calling themselves as back end developers. Yeah, yeah, we'll talk about that. Don't worry. Okay, we will talk about a lot of things. So let me just give this idea and then we'll move ahead. Now, a front-end developer is a person who completely is guided, or he is completely devoted to the UI part. I hope you guys know about UI, user interfaces, user experience. Have you ever heard about these terms? User interface, user experience. Yeah. So how the look and feel of any application is going to be, that concerned area is for the person who is a front-end developer. So front-end developer is the person who works on the UI part or the UX part. All right. He's more concerned towards how the website is going to look, how the website is going to feel, how the experience of the user is going to be. And all the things related to this is a concern area of a front-end developer. Now, to be a front-end developer, there are a lot of technologies that you have to cater on, right? I'll not say a lot of technologies, but yeah, there are a few technologies that you should be very, very good with. So the very first technology that you should have an idea about should be HTML, right? This is just a basic markup language, right? It's not a programming language, rather it's a markup language wherein you can design documents, right? Create web pages. So this is the very basic, the very fundamental that every front-end developer should know, and they does know, right? The next part is something called as CSS, which is basically a styling language wherein you can style up your whole documents, web pages, using CSS, right? This basically shorts for cascading style sheets, and the front-end developer is like pretty good at this part, right? The CSS part. The next thing, if you want to do a little more of advanced styling, or you want to be a little steady and a little fast on the styling part, you should be able to know something of a framework which is called as Bootstrap. So Bootstrap is a styling framework which you can use apart from CSS, and this gives you a fast way of styling up your documents. Okay, so that is something that you should be able to learn. And then comes the most important part of web development, which is called as JavaScript. How many of you have no idea what JavaScript is? Just want to know. How many of you are very new to JavaScript? Like never worked on JavaScript before? Okay. 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 Cool. Cool. Not an issue. Not an issue. I'll give you an idea about a lot of things. Used in API testing. Okay. Cool. API testing makes sense. We also will be doing a little things here and there on APIs. So yeah, we'll be talking about that. So after that, you should be able to learn something which is called as, any front-end framework. Now, for the front-end framework part, you should be very, very intriguing or very clear on your head what you want to do in the future. If let's suppose if you want to be a full stack developer, what kind of full stack developer you want to be, that is decided on the front-end frameworks that you'll be working on. There are a lot of front-end frameworks in the market, a lot of them, right? And the very three things which are like booming these days in the industry, these front-end frameworks are, you might have heard about React, you might have also heard about Angular, and then definitely you might have heard about Vue. And these are the three frameworks which are like booming in the industry. I've heard about WordPress. What is it? Like, no idea. WordPress actually was or I'll not say was, it's rather still a way. If you want to create, front-end development, if you do not have a lot of knowledge about JavaScript, or you do not have a lot of knowledge about, much of a styling, when you don't want to do a lot of coding, but rather wants to design things or develop things, you use something called as WordPress. So WordPress is basically a tool. It's not a technology. It's a tool of way of using or designing full stack full stack projects. Not exactly, I'll not call them full stack projects. Rather, you can create front end projects using it. Yeah, it's a CMS tool. That's what I said. It's not a technology. It's just a tool. It's just a way of designing stuff, designing documents, designing applications. All right. There are few, I'll say that if you are thinking of to learn WordPress, I'll say don't do that, because generally people or companies or anyone, these matters, until and unless it's not a personal project, people don't work on WordPress anymore, or they don't have it, right? Yeah, correct. So they don't work. The reason is that it's not robust. It's not a fancy project that you can go and deploy and you could say that it's production ready. No, it's not the case, because there are a lot of holes, a lot of things that generally gets crashed on if you're designing your application on WordPress. So that's not the way how we design it. So yeah, coming back, we were talking about few front-end frameworks, and I just want you guys to be a little attentive out here, because this is where people have a lot of questions. And even in the session, there would be a lot of people who will be like that, what framework should I work? How many of you are like still confused with what front frameworks you should be working on? And I'm pretty sure there would be a lot of people in the session itself. How many of you have heard about these front-end frameworks and are still confused at what framework should I work on? Be honest. And even for the people who have worked on full stack, they would be knowing the pain to actually go around and search for different things, like there is React, there is Angular, there is Vue, and all of these technologies. Honestly, these are, yeah, not exactly. There are few things that I don't like about React. There are few things that I don't like about Angular as well. So there are few pros and few cons. So the question is that there are few front-end frameworks like React, Angular, Vue, and people, So that would be the question that I'll be giving an answer to you, that what frameworks you should be working on. If this is the kind of like an environment you're working on, what frameworks you should be working on. So we'll be answering to that question. All right. Now, there are few, okay, now try to understand it. Okay. No. So when it comes to demand, all of these three technologies are highly in demand in the market, to be very honest. If you talk about Google, Facebook, Amazon, these top-notch companies, they are looking for people who are good at all of these front-end frameworks, to be very honest. So these three frameworks are really in demand. They're high in demand in the market, right? So if you are calling yourself as full stack developer, or you're calling yourself as a front-end developer, they'll be expecting you to know a lot of deep knowledge about all of these things, right? And people have a lot of misconception about it. So let me actually give you an idea about it. So there is something which is called as React, and then there is something called as Angular, and there is a lot of debate. Even if you'll go online on Reddit or YouTube and stuff like that, you'll find a lot of debate going on that which of the front frameworks are like good for the market, or where it could be you can get a land on a good job or stuff like that. So let me give you an idea. There is something called as React, and then there is something called as Angular, and all of these two frameworks are like beautiful frameworks. I have like hands-on worked on both the frameworks. So I'll give you a pros and cons of my experience. Again, the choosing of the framework is completely going to be a personal preference, but I'll be sharing out my experiences as a developer for past around like seven plus years. All right, so I'll give you that. So when you talk about React is very lightweight. The reason people love it, it's very lightweight, right? It's very lightweight and it's easy to start with. This is like the most popular way. The reason React is so popular, that it's very easy to start with. Like it's easy to learn. When it comes to the learning curve, it's a learn. Yeah, it's a library. It's definitely a library. So yeah, let me actually be very clear to people. React is a library, but people call React as a framework because the way React works. Because React cannot design a full stack a full stack project by standalone. There are a lot of other things which goes around it. For example, if you might have worked on React, you will be knowing something which is called as Redux. Have you ever heard about Redux? A lot of people call it library, but it's still a library. It's not a framework. The reason we don't call it framework, because standalone React cannot make a lot of changes. Yeah. Answer about what? Yeah, still I use hooks and yeah, even it's completely up to you. The state management is completely up to you. But if you're comfortable using hooks and use state and stuff like that, then in that case you might not be willing to move to Redux. But there are a lot of things. Okay, if I talk about to you guys, for the people who might have worked on React, what do you do for routing? What do you do for routing? If I ask you that, what do you do for routing? If you want to like include routing to React, can you actually do that? Is there any inbuilt feature of using routing in React? Just give me a yes or no. React router, again, exactly, React router DOM. You have to again go around and install that using npm, if I'm not wrong. Yeah, you have to install it. It's not there in build. Like if you talk about JSX is inbuilt, right? It's inbuilt in the React. But when you talk about React router is not something which is inbuilt in React. That is why it's not called as a framework. That is why it's still called as a library, because there are not things that are integrated inside the library to make it like a framework. But it can act like a framework if you go around. A router is a way of navigating your user to different sections. I'm just explaining you stuff for the people who are still confused with why React is still called as library. The reason it's still called as library, it's not a full featured framework, right? It's still a library which is still growing, right? uh, okay, I'll tell you about that, Manushi. Okay, just give me one second. What is Atom is basically a text editor. So it's exactly like VS Code. You might have heard about VS. It's like Notepad, kind of like a thing where you can go around and edit up your code. So it's a text editor. It's a code editor. All right. So coming back. So when you talk about React is a library which in turn can act like a framework. There is a lot of reasons that we can use frameworks, and I'll get back to that. But let's actually understand this part. All right. So why people love React? That it's very lightweighted. It's very easy to start, and the third part is it's completely based on JavaScript. All right, it's completely based on JavaScript. So if you already know JavaScript, which you might have already learned once you're doing the front end development part, so the reason people love it, that it's completely based on JavaScript. So it's a part of JavaScript also, right? And there are even few things that people don't like. Specifically, if I talk about myself, there are few things that I don't like about React. The very first thing that I don't like about React is that it uses JSX, right? Uses JSX. Have you ever heard about JSX? For the people who are coming from React, they'd be knowing what I'm talking about. Yeah. Yes. So when you talk about JSX, this thing or way of working on JSX is completely new to the people who are coming from JavaScript background. They do not know where to go, or they do not know what to do, and they get a lot of confused when if, let's suppose, if you want to render something as a prop, what do? You put it in the curly brackets and stuff like that. So people get a little confused with JSX, and which is not a good thing. It takes a little time to adapt with it. Yeah, it's easy to use. I'll not say that it's not easy to use. It's definitely very easy to use. But people, for the students specifically, when you talk about students have a way of categorizing HTML and JavaScript completely different in different files. But when you come to JSX, everything is blended up together. and it's a combination of HTML and JavaScript, which is used in React. So it's like, it's like little difficult for people to cope up with. Now, the second thing that I don't like about React, that it's library, as I said, there are not everything which is included in the React. You'll have to go around with the NPM, which is called as Node Package Manager, and you'll have to, Node.js is definitely in demand. It's definitely in demand. So when you talk about library, you'll have to go around and install a lot of things which is called as NPM, which is Node Package Manager, and you'll have to go around and install a lot of things in order to make it work like a framework. So this is something that I don't like about React. The third thing that I don't like about React, for which people will be telling me a lot of different things, it's very customizable. It's kind of like React. It's kind of like Android, right? It's kind of like Android, where the customization is completely in the user's hand. Or in this case, when you talk about the customization, this customization is completely in developers' hand. There are a lot of things you might have heard about. Have you ever heard about React Native? Have you ever heard about React Native? Or there are a lot of technologies which is similar to React Native, right? So the customization, Django is a part of Python. That's a complete different thing. Django is a part of Python. Okay, so you can design front end using Python as well. So you can use Django and stuff. Okay, so the customization, when you talk about the styling, or wherein you want to use different things, there are a lot of customizations that you can do when you're talking about React. And to be very honest, I don't like about it. Yeah, it's for building native applications, and again, it's a part of React. If you're building a full stack application, you can create native app out of it using something called as React Native. That is why I'm saying there are a lot of customizations for the same. You can design a native applications for iOS, and you can design standalone applications for Android and stuff like that. But when you talk about, have you ever heard about something called as what do we call that as? I forgot the name. But generally, to be very honest, like React is good. I'm not saying that React is bad. It's very good. It's highly in demand. The most popular framework out there these days is React, to be very honest. But again, it has its own pros, and it has its own cons. But when you talk about Angular is also the same thing. Wherein when you talk about Angular is a full-fledged framework. So it's a full-fledged framework. And when you talk about a full-fledged framework, everything and anything, from the moment you'll be creating the application, you'll get everything inside inbuilt. For example, if you talk about assets, if you talk about, we'll come to JavaScript. Just give me 1 second. Okay. So I hope you're not getting bored. So if you want, we can just completely skip to the part and just come to the topic. Should we skip this part? It's completely up to you. Like, if you're not interested, we can just skip this part out. Yeah, it's up to you. It's up to you, completely like up to you. Are you sure that I shouldn't skip this out? Should I continue? Like, just give me your opinions. Yeah, okay, cool. So, all right. So when you talk about Angular is a full-fledged framework, and I'll give you an example. I'll be having few Angular projects, right? So in this case, when you talk about routers, when you talk about stylings, for styling, you have Angular material. You do not have a lot of customization in the developer's hand. Everything is, pre-built, and everything is inbuilt in case of Angular. You do not have to go around and research onto different things in order to make something work. So that is something that I love about Angular, because, it's easy for a developer to not go around and get his hands dirty onto different things and go around and research onto different things for maybe customization or maybe for making something work. What I can do is it's a full-fledged framework. I'll just make use of it. All right. The second thing that I love about it, it's more secure. It's more secure, and the development is actually more secure as compared to what do you call this as React, because in React, the React is completely based on JavaScript, whereas when you talk about Angular, in Angular you use something which is called as TypeScript. Have you ever heard about TypeScript? Anyone who has heard about TypeScript? I'm pretty sure for the people who are working on mean stack, they'll be understanding what I'm trying to say. So there is something called as TypeScript, which is called as a superset of JavaScript. Yeah, it's a superset of JavaScript, and it comes with a few more functionalities as compared to that of JavaScript. For example, you can do dynamic typing, and you can have a look on typings as well. For example, you can specifically mention what type of data it's going to be. It's going to be in number data, or string data, or Boolean data. What kind of data is like that? Okay. I hope my voice is okay. I hope my voice is okay. Yeah. Yeah, Shivam, you're completely right. You can use, you can definitely can use what you call this as, TypeScript in React. But again, if you talk about the defaults, it's not default. You'll have to mention it and you'll have to create TypeScript code specifically out of it, right? So if, let's suppose, if you're designing components or if you're building components, the traditional way of using the same thing is using JavaScript, because a lot of people are not comfortable with TypeScript. But when you come to Angular, Angular makes you restrict to one particular way of using it. But because if you'll be creating components out of it, the default file that will be created is going to be, let's say, app.component.ts. So you're bounded to use TypeScript. You cannot use JavaScript. But again, every JavaScript code is a valid TypeScript code, but the vice versa is not true and stuff like that. But specifically, a developer is bound to use TypeScript. In that case, it makes the code more robust and more secure in the development phase. I hope you're getting the point what I'm trying to explain you. Again, the same thing could be done in React, but it's not default. But when you talk about Angular, everything is default, right? As I said, there are no much customizations that you have to go through. All right. The third thing that I love about Angular, for the people who are very, who come to the very new way or comes to the, for the fresh start on Angular, the thing that I love about it is the learning curve is very high. Learning curve is very, very high. Okay. What do I mean by that? See, try to understand. The React is very lightweighted framework. So you do not have a lot of things to learn about it when you come to React. But when you talk about Angular, now for third point for me, it's a pro, like it's a good point. But for few people who don't like studying much, they'll be like, yeah, it's not a pro, it's a con. So again, it's a personal preference, right? But the learning curve here in Angular as compared to React is way higher. For example, you learn a lot of things. For example, services, there are something called as, what do you call this as? There is communication which happens between, components to components. And there are a few things that you have to do it in a traditional way. Then there is something which is called as, what is it called? I forgot. You have to subscribe to it. I forgot. So there are a lot of things which are like very new to Angular. For the person who's coming to the Angular for the very first time, is going to learn a lot of things. But in React, the learning curve is low, but the development curve is high. So this is the difference between the same. Now, when you talk about the cons of Angular, there are a lot of cons in Angular as well. Again, the learning curve is high. I'm just going to keep it in both the sides, that the learning curve is high. Few people don't like it. Few people be like, kaam to wahi ho raha hai. The work is exactly the same. So why are we learning a lot of different things which are not like necessary? The second thing I don't like about Angular, it's very heavy. It's a very heavy application. Heavy as in like when you get everything in one plate, it basically makes your application heavy. So when you're making it in the development phase, even in the development phase, your application can easily go from 500 MBs to 600 MBs, even if you're not creating something or even if you're not designing something inside it. So it's like very heavy application. The third thing that I don't like about React, the deployment part becomes a little tedious for a lot of people who are coming from maybe from React to Angular. The deployment becomes a little tedious in case of Angular. So that's the case. All right. Now, if you talk about what should I learn, it completely depends on you that in which companies do you want to go? Yeah, observables. I was about to talk about observables. Yeah, you have to subscribe to them. Yeah, it comes from RxJS. I'm pretty intrigued. A lot of people have a lot of idea about these frameworks. That's like pretty cool. Cool. All right, great. So yeah, I was coming to that. What should you learn? This is a like very frequent question that people ask me or students ask me, that what framework should I learn? Now, a lot of people have an idea to go for Google. Let's say if you're aiming for Google, in that case, Google completely works on Angular, because Angular is designed and maintained by Google now. So Google is the one who created Angular, right? For the very first time, the Google was the one who created Angular, and it's still maintained by Google. When you talk about React is a part of Facebook, right? It's a part of Facebook. Facebook maintains React now. So, and when you talk about the community for both the frameworks is very huge. It's very huge. So even if you get stuck anywhere, you'll get a lot of support for the same, right? You'll get a lot of support for that. So if you're aiming for companies like Google, you'll have to stick to Angular. If you're aiming for companies like maybe like, let's say Apple or Facebook or Amazon for that matter, even Amazon caters onto both the people for MERN stack and mean stack. Yeah, one thing more, a lot of people get confused with that. But the people who work on React, those are called as MERN stack developer, wherein this R stands for React. And there are a few people who call themselves as mean stack developer. In that case, A stands for Angular. So for the people who work on React, those are called as MERN stack. What is the third framework work written? Now, the third one is not so popular. I'll not say that it's not so much in demand. Like it's popular, but it's not so much in demand. It's exactly like React, but it's a blend of it's a good blend of React and Angular. But a lot of people, but again, you cannot create a lot of good. I'll not say you cannot create. You actually can, but again, the learning curve as compared to Angular, it's like normal, but as compared to React, it's high. For the people who gets their hands dirty on React or Angular, they do not prefer working on Vue. Specifically me, when I started on with Vue, I didn't like it for the initials. But again, it's a good framework. You can use it. It's a good blend of React and Angular. But a lot of people don't find it like intriguing enough for them to pursue onto the career for the same. But again, there are a lot of Vue.js developers as well. So you can use that. It's completely based on JavaScript. It's kind of like React, but not exactly React. It's a good blend. You can go around and get your hands dirty on Vue for the people who are working as either MERN stack or mean stack developers. So you can do that. All right. So I hope you got a little idea that what is React, what is Angular, and you should be very, very clear. If you're not scared of learning, I'll say you start with Angular, then go to React. And it's not like that if you're working with React, you cannot go with Angular, or if you're working on Angular, you cannot go on React. It's not like that. The whole agenda of both the things is both the frameworks is exactly the same, that go around and create components and then create single page applications out of it. Yeah, sure, Shivam, please hit me with your question. Right, so you can design all of these things. Yeah, Angular and AngularJS is like different. So AngularJS was the very first build that was rolled out, and it's called as Angular 1 or AngularJS. It's deprecated now. Nobody works on it. Like, it's deprecated. It's not maintained by Google anymore. There are no releases or no updates for the same that's coming out. So it was a very traditional way of working on Angular. It's outdated. Nobody works on it. But after from Angular 2 and further whatever versions they have rolled out, which is called as Angular 2 Plus or conventionally called as Angular, these are the modern way of designing. So AngularJS and Angular are like two completely different things, right? So AngularJS was the initial version, which is also called as Angular 1. Few people call it Angular 1, few people call it AngularJS, but it's deprecated now. Google doesn't maintain or doesn't roll out any updates for AngularJS, so it's pretty much deprecated. Nobody works on AngularJS anymore. So yeah, AngularJS and Angular are completely different. Yeah, completely up to you guys. I'll say, see, honestly speaking, if you get into full stack development, it's not going to be like, you will be very intrigued. Like, if let's suppose if you might have learned React and you mastered onto React, you will eventually get bored. I'm honestly I'm telling you from my perspective, you'll get bored with Angular. Sorry, with React, and then you'll think of, okay, let's go to Angular. And the vice versa is also true. If you're starting on with Angular, you'll be intrigued that how does React works, and let's get the hands dirty on React. So you'll come to React and you'll start to learn it. So it's I'll say it's a good habit of getting your hands dirty with both the frameworks, React and Angular. Learn both of them and decide for yourself which one do you feel. So if you're not scared of learning, I'll say start with React and then start with Angular and then go to React. And if you're scared of learning, if you're scared, I just want to learn like really quick, then start with React and then go to Angular. All right, but both the frameworks are like huge popular. I've worked on both the frameworks, and both the frameworks are like amazing, right? So the whole agenda of the both the frameworks is to create components and then create single page applications out of it. The whole agenda is the same, but again, you should get your hands dirty and do stuff by your own. So that's gonna make a lot of sense. All right, so this was the front end wala part. So when you talk about backend, let's quickly have a look on backend and then we'll start on with the session. All right. Then we'll discuss what are we going to do. When you come to backend, there are a lot of backends for you people. If you are very comfortable with JavaScript, you can stick to Node.js backend, which is called as you can learn Express, you can learn Express, and you can learn Node.js in this, right? So this will give you an idea about backend development. You can also design backend using Java, which is called as Spring Boot. Okay. The same thing, you can also do it with Python, which is called as, Flask, Django and Flask, Flask plus Django. You can learn that as well. And yeah, there is something which is called as PHP. I don't know why people are so obsessed with it. Like, it's almost like, yeah, you can call it PHP, but PHP is very outdated. I'll say it's very, very outdated. And when you talk about the industry trends, nobody is hiring PHP developers anymore, because pretty much everyone has rolled out their backends from PHP, except for Facebook. Yes, Facebook still works on PHP. I don't know why, but they'll soon be rolling out their backends from PHP to some other. Yeah. Exactly. That's also getting very, very popular these days. But the most popular that you can use, ASP.NET. Yeah, definitely you can do that. ASP.NET is also the way of creating it. Go, yeah, Go. You can use Go. Go is again, it comes under the part of Java. So it's Go and Java are like pretty much the same thing. You can use Go, or you can use Golang and Java and create Spring Boot applications out of it. So these are a few ways how you can design backends. Even if you're interested, I'm at the end of the session, I'm going to share you out with the YouTube channel of Innomatics. And you'll find in the last masterclass, we designed up a backend using Node.js and Express. So just in case if you're interested, you can go around and see that video. You'll get a little idea about the same. But again, you can design a lot of backends, but the most popular is Node.js and Express. Yeah, at the end of the session, I'm going to share it out with you. Or should I share it out with you right now? I'll share it at the end of the session, because there are going to be a lot of questions. At the end of the session, I'm going to share you out with the YouTube channel. I'll share you the link. You can go around, and even we have done a lot of projects like Twitter Stream APIs. We have done, basic things like Twitter Stream API. We have learned Node.js. We have learned MongoDB and stuff like that. So you can go around and do that. Okay. So yeah. So this is the idea. I hope you got an idea about front-end frameworks, backend, how to design. Now, when you talk about backend is basically completely like handling up your data, like from databases, and how the things are going to go from server side to client side. And in this session, we are actually going to make use of the backend wala part, and we'll be doing something called as Ajax. How many of you have done Ajax, by the way? How many of you have worked on Ajax? Angular and MongoDB. Too helpful to other product-based companies. Yeah, definitely. See, the learning curve when it comes to full stack development is huge. Like, there are a lot of windows, right? When you talk about backend, when you talk about front end, when you talk about all of these things, there are a lot of streams that you can go into. Maybe you can learn React, and at the back end you can use Spring Boot, or maybe you can start with Angular, and at the end you can create Python, or maybe PHP or Node.js backend. You can pretty much do anything, right? So there are a lot of learning curves that goes into. That's completely up to you. How do you want to go around and use it, right? So how much time does it take? So if you're learning it, around 3 months is going to be a perfect time if you're like good at learning. If you're not scared of learning, and if you're not scared of putting a lot of things. Can't we use Fetch API instead of Ajax? You can. Even you can use Axios if you're interested in that. You can use Axios as well. Axios is also very, very popular when it comes to API integration, doing a lot of things. The reason I chose Ajax, because a lot of people don't have an idea about the basics. Yeah. We'll talk about Ajax. This is the session. This is the thing that I'm going to keep in the session, that what Ajax is. There are so many stuff. That is why I personally feel very, very intrigued with full stack development, because there is a lot of things on these things. So if you're ready, we can start on with Ajax. Shall we start on with Ajax? Right at the end, if you'll be having any questions related to what should I do, or what should I learn, what should I expect things from full stack development and stuff like that, you can ask me that questions at the end of the session, when pretty much we'll be done with all of these things. All right, so should we start? If you're ready, just give me a big yes. We'll start on. Quick, let's do that. Yeah, cool, pretty cool. That was a pretty huge yes, Utkarsh. Yeah, I seen that. Yeah, cool, pretty cool. Let's start with that. All right. Now, I'll highly will recommend, please be attentive. The reason is a lot of people don't know the basics, and I'll be also be touching a few things here and there on DOM. So just in case if you don't know about DOM, I'll also be giving you a lot of idea on what you call this as JavaScript. And I'll also be giving you few things on DOM. I'll be also be telling you a few things about DOM. So yeah, so I'll give you an overview for the things that we'll be doing out in this session. We'll be completely working on DOM. Yeah, I'll be giving you everything about DOM. DOM is basically called as document object model, and we'll be doing a stuff with document object model, including some APIs and stuff. So yeah, the session is gonna be very, very informative. So stay tuned. All right. So we'll be working on something called as Ajax today, right? And this Ajax basically shorts for asynchronous JavaScript and XML, right? And what Ajax typically is, it's a way of integrating data into your application. So typically, if I tell you like in a very short hand, what typically Ajax is, it's a way of integrating back into a front end. So if you have a backend, which maybe it could be a third-party backend or any backend that maybe you have created. So what you can do, you can integrate a back into a front end. That is why we use Ajax. Now, if you talk about the alternatives are very huge. You can use Fetch, you can use Axios, you can use a lot of things. But Ajax is a very traditional way. Like if you know Ajax, you can actually switch to any of the other things that you want to use. Even you can use jQuery rather than using Ajax and stuff like that. You can use a lot of things, but again, it's a very traditional way. And I'm going to tell you how to approach onto these things. Now, what can you expect out of this session? What to expect? Let me actually tell you about that. So the things that you should expect, that if you know front end, you can create projects, like big projects out of when you'll be learning in the session. So out from the session, you can design good projects, like actually good projects, which looks like a full-fledged full stack applications, right? So you'll be able to design projects, and I'll tell you how. Second things, you'll be able to, of course, you'll be able to integrate back into front end. But the next thing that you will learn is to how APIs work and how the data is flown in a full stack in a full stack project. So how the data is flown, you'll understand that. The next thing, you'll learn a few things about JavaScript and DOM. So this is something that you can expect out from the session, that I'll be giving you a few things. Or actually, if you're interested, I can show you a project. Should I show you a project? That if you'll be learning Ajax, this is something that you can do. Like if you know how to design front end, just by using Ajax, you'll be able to design something or few applications like that. Cool. Let me actually show you a few projects. So this is a project that one of my students has designed for them. So let me actually go to IO, or let me actually go to github.io /assessment project. So I'll tell you about that, Rahul. So just have a look on the project. This project is completely based on Ajax. I'll even if you're interested, I'll share you the source code as well. So he has integrated any third-party API, and this is what he has designed out of these. So if you'll explore this out, there are a lot of things wherein you can search for movies, you can search for TV shows, you can search for books, you can search. I think it's still under development. I think they have not integrated music as of now. Yeah, they have not integrated music. But apart from that, you can search movies, you can search TV shows, you can get information about few books and stuff like that. So let's say if I go to the movies part, you can actually search onto a lot of movies. For example, any movie that you're interested in, any movie, just give me the name of any movie, maybe Hollywood, Bollywood, doesn't matter. Inception, let's say Inception. So if I search for Inception, so you'll see a YouTube link actually going on, which actually runs, right? Which runs like, yeah. And then you'll see that there is a poster of the same, and you'll get a little options about the same thing. And you can actually watch the trailer if you're interested on YouTube. So automatically this is going to be, it's completely up to you. You can design all of these things, right? So you can see that it's working. Let's say Army of Dead. Is it like a movie, or like is it a like series? Quick. Is it a series or is it a movie? Is it a movie? Like I have not seen it. It's a series, I believe. Army of Dead is a series. I think it's like a very okay. If you're saying movie, I'll trust you. Army of Dead. I don't know. Like if it's new, I don't know. Yeah, I think this is the one. I think this is the one. So it's kind of like a Netflix, kind of like a clone, right? It's a Netflix kind of like a clone that you can go around and design for yourself, right? Just by using Ajax. And I'll show you the source code at the end when you'll be having a good idea about all of these things. So if you know how to work on front end, you can actually, integrate third-party APIs and design a backend or integrate a backend to a front end and can make cool applications like this where you can go around and deploy it. Right. And now we can also search for TV shows. If you're interested, you can actually go around and search for TV shows, any TV shows that you're interested in. Now, please don't give me Friends. No. Yeah, I knew somebody would be telling me Friends and Friends reunion. Okay, how many of you here are like Friends fan? I know there would be a lot of people. Yeah, why not? ये रिश्ता क्या कहलाता है? I think it's गोपी बहू वाला serial जिसके like बहुत memes हुए थे. I think. Yeah, it's the same one. I'm not sure about it. No, it's not that. Oh, okay, it's different. Oh, I was not knowing about that. Okay, so let's say these are okay. Let's say Money Heist. Yeah, Money Heist is good. I've not watched it though, but yeah, I've heard that it's pretty cool. So let's say we search for Money Heist. So you'll see that the trailer would be going on. There is a trailer. You can search down here. You'll get an info about Money Heist. You'll see that what seasons there are, what are the number of episodes. You get a lot of things, and you can see that the background is setting depending upon whatever you're searching out from there. Yeah, okay, yeah. Gopiwala serial is Satya. It's called as Satya? Oh, I'm not sure. But yeah, there are Breaking Bads. Okay, how many of you are here who thinks How I Met Your Mother is better than Friends? Anyone who's with me? No? What? No. If somebody okay, but yeah, it's exactly like React and Angular. Whatever things that you see first, you fall for it. I saw How I Met Your Mother first as compared to Friends, so I didn't like Friends much. And please don't judge me on the things if I say that I have not watched Friends. I've literally not watched Friends. So yeah, yeah, we are legendary. Yeah. I'm feeling you, Pranav, out. Yeah, I'm actually feeling you, man. Yeah. So yeah, you can actually design applications like that. Cool stuff, cool beans. Yeah. Cool beans. So you can see out here, so you can get a lot of things about seasons, how many seasons there are, what the season is, what the number of seasons are. So this is like pretty cool. You can actually do that. You can even get books if you're interested. So you can just go out here, you can search for books, let's say Swift. Yeah, and you'll get it. Yeah, you get a little summary about it. You'll see the genre, you'll see the size. You can even buy it. I think they have integrated Apple Books, if I'm not wrong. I think yeah, they've integrated Apple Books. Yeah. So if you'll be learning Ajax, you'll be able to create it. I am at Hyderabad right now. Yeah. So if you're interested, we can learn Ajax, and you'll be pretty much will be, and I'll give you an idea how to design these projects. So we can learn how to design these projects. So are you interested? Should we have a look on Ajax? Only if you're interested, we can start on. You sure? You sure about it? All right, cool beans. So let's move in. All right, cool. So let's design. Uh, let's talk on Ajax. Cool. So let's start with Ajax. The things that we'll be doing today is going to be Ajax. As I said, Ajax is an acronym for asynchronous JavaScript and XML. Now in the acronym there is XML, but we don't use XML anymore, right? We work on JSON data. For the people who are coming from full stack background, they'll be knowing what I'm talking about. So JSON has pretty much taken other form of data transfer. So we'll be doing that. Now for Ajax, what would be necessary, or what would be the prerequisite that we'll have to learn before we actually go around and look into Ajax? You should be knowing something about client server architecture. So we'll be talking about that first. We'll be talking about client server architecture. Apart from that, we'll be also be learning few things on networking and what are the important steps that you should be knowing if you're interested to create something of a projects for Ajax. Okay, so we'll be doing that first. Chalo. All right, so let's not waste time now, and let's move to the prerequisites part. And yeah, in the prerequisite, you'll also be knowing you'll be needing a little knowledge of JavaScript, little to knowledge of JavaScript, and I'll be teaching you JavaScript in between of Ajax, so don't worry about that. Okay, cool. For the people who have like no idea on how to write code on JavaScript, don't worry, we'll start from scratch. Okay. So let's start with client server architecture, and let's not waste time, and let's make use of client server architecture. Now, a lot of people have a, by even for the people who is in like first year of stuff, they know a lot of things on client server architecture. This is like very traditional way of explaining things. So let me actually give you what you have learned. So you might have learned about things like there is a client. Let's say this is a client, and let's say this is a server, right? So let's say this, I have a very bad drawing, by the way, so don't judge me for that. Okay, so we have a client, and in traditional client server architecture, what happens is that a client makes a request to a server, and the server processes that request and sends you back with the response. I think that this is the thing that you might have learned. This is the thing you might have learned, right? That a client makes a request to a server, the server processes that request. If the processing seems or turns out to be good, good amount of things, then it shares you out with the response. Now, when you talk about this client server architecture, there is a lot of things that goes behind the scene, which we actually miss out. Now, this is true that a client makes a request to a server and the server hits you back with the response. But what happens in between? Let's talk about that for a little second. Now, when you talk about requests, there are a lot of things that you have to keep in mind when you're talking about the requests. There are something which is called as request headers. And we'll talk about them. There are something called as request headers. There is something called as request body. And there is something called as a good request, or I'll say HTTP request methods. And then there is something which is called as either a good request or a bad request. Good or bad request. Let's talk about them for a little second, because we'll be integrating all of these things when we'll go to the JavaScript and we'll start to write code. Everything will be coming down with the code. So let's talk about that. MVC, model view controller. So it's a design pattern actually. So it has nothing to do with Ajax. Okay. So that's completely different part. MVC is like a completely different part. Okay. So let's not mix up things. Now, when a client is making a request, now try to understand stuff, all right? Now, be a little attentive out here, because this is going to come at the time when we'll be coding stuff. Okay, so when you talk about requests, the requests are having a lot of things inside them, all right? A lot of different things inside them. For example, the headers of the request. For example, if you're trying to act on a server, just try to okay, so let's first let's talk about Ajax for a little second. Now, let's say okay, everyone is paying attention. I'm just going to give you a scenario and you're going to hit me out with what do you think that you would have done if you would be in that scenario. So you ready? Should I throw you with yeah, sure, I'll do that, sure. So would you mind if I give you a little scenario? Let's think about the scenarios first, and then this Ajax is going to make a lot of sense. So should I give you a scenario? Yeah. Now let's say I'm going to give you a scenario. Let's say you want to create an application to compete with Zomato, let's say. Okay, so Zomato is like booming these days, right? So a lot of people are either use Zomato or maybe they use Swiggy. I don't think that anybody else is going to be in the other zone apart from Zomato and Swiggy. Cool. So if let's say you think, or let's say you come up to your friend and you be like, hey, I have $1 billion idea. I want to do something apart which is being done in Zomato. Let's say you're thinking of a feature which is not there in Zomato, but you want to integrate it into an application. So in the easier terms, you want to create an application which looks exactly, or which works exactly like that of Zomato. So you come up with the solution, you design the project. All right. Now, for designing the project, what do you think is going to be the negative side of your application? Think about it. What would be the thing that you'd be requiring the most if you want to create a food delivery system like that of Zomato? Think. What do you think that you would be left out with one very, very important thing? And what is that very, very important thing? The one thing that you'll be requiring the most if you want to create the food delivery system kind of like a project. What do you think? Interface is not a problem. We can do that. We can hire, let's say, developers, or we can hire front-end developers and he can design the interface. So that's completely fine. That's not a problem. Connecting with hotels. Good. Now you get it. How are you going to showcase that if somebody is at a particular location, how would you be able to give the data or show the data to the user? Because you're very new to the market. Just think about it. You are very new to the market. How are you going to roll out the information that if you are at a particular location, these are the hotels that are nearby to you and these are what they'll be ordering? Google Maps GPS doesn't give you a lot of idea about the hotels or what the opening time or closing time is and what are the cuisines that they're going to offer you and what the price of those cuisines are going to be. Shreyas, I hope this is making sense. Just think about it as a Zomato. You're trying to compete with Zomato. Think about it in that way. Research. Okay, good answer. Raki said research. Now, what do you think? Zomato has been in the industry for around like what, 5-7 years now? I think that, yeah. Now think about that if you're trying to compete with Zomato, if you're trying to compete it out with Zomato and you're doing the research now and then creating the application, do you think that it's going to make a good impact on the customer side? Think about it. If you're going to make a whole set of team who's going to go for the research, do you think that it's going to be worth enough? Okay, so you said that create a platform for hotel where they can register with us. Now, good answer, but think about the customer side. Now, if you go to a customer and you be like, hey, we have created up a project, let's go around and sign up. For trust issues, do you go around and shop outside of Flipkart and Amazon? If you do, give me a yes. I'll give you a lot of links then. Think about it. As a customer, will you ever feel comfortable in registering yourself or making yourself registered to a thing which you are not comfortable with, or where you are giving offers? Now, again, this is going to be on the stake of your price point, right? It's going to be, your company is going to be on a loss. Are you getting what I'm trying to explain you? Now, if you're talking about that, you'll go to the hotel and you'll ask them to register, there would be a trust issue that will be coming out. Giving offers, it's going to hamper up your money. Don't you think that there should be a way wherein we should be able to get database? Think about it. Again, marketing, digital marketing, all of these things are going to take time. Priyanka, try to understand that. And we're competing with Zomato, for which everybody, even a small kid, knows how to order it from Zomato. So this marketing and digital marketing, all of these things are going to take time. Surveys are again going to take time. Again, now, what do you want? All you want is a database. Now let's come back to the problem statement. What do you need? All you need is a database, right? You need a database. You need the data in order to compete with Zomato. This is where APIs comes into picture, right? This is where APIs comes into picture. If you talk about these huge companies, like even if you talk about Zoom, even if you talk about Zomato, even if you talk about GitHub, even if you talk about YouTube, even if you talk about anything, these big companies comes out with something called as APIs. Have you ever heard about APIs? Have you ever heard about APIs? Yeah. So these big companies roll out their APIs in order for third-party developers to integrate it into their third-party applications and make a full-fledged application out of it. Now, a lot of people, you will be thinking about कि सामने वाले का benefit क्या हुआ? Like, why are they rolling out their APIs for free? They're actually not keeping it up for free. Yeah, application programming interface. They're not keeping up for free. They have actually spent millions and billions of dollars for all of these research and campaigns and all of these things in order to enlarge their databases. Even if you talk about Google, even if you talk about Facebook, even if you talk about all of these things, how are they earning money? If you talk about Facebook, how is he earning money? He's earning money out of your data, right? So what do? They sell out your data to other people and they earn money out of it. So in that case, both the parties are going to be happy. You'll get a database and Zomato is going to get money out of it. I hope this is making sense. I hope this is making sense. So what you can do, you can think about an API, right? And you can purchase an API and you can get a data out of that API, and you can use as into your projects as a third-party application, and you can use it. This is where Ajax comes into picture. Ajax is a technology which helps you to integrate a API into your application. So that's what we'll be doing. Yeah, exactly. All you'll get is data, and you'll have to write business logic around that. Up to you, right? The business logic part is completely up to you. Anu, okay? So the business logic of the application is up to you. All you'll get is a database, and you'll get a flow of data, and you can expose it to your user, right? You might have even seen a lot of, you might have seen Ola and Uber. You might have, rode around with these people. You might have seen that if you're using Ola and Uber, what do? Do they have their own maps? Think about it. Do they have their own maps? Do they have their own maps? What do? They integrate Google Maps, and down there you'll see a big watermark and out there. Yeah. They use Google Maps, and you'll see a good big watermark out there saying Google, and you get it. Oh, this is Google Maps. So this is how you can, it's a Google Maps API. You can go around and integrate that into your application. You can go around. Few of the applications or few of the APIs would be free. Some would be paid. For paid, you'll have to pay for the data, and for few things you'll not have to pay for the data. Okay, and you can find a lot of good free APIs in the internet, and you can go around and use them if you're interested. Okay, so yeah, thank you. So in the request paths, there are a lot of requests that goes into like headers, bodies, and stuff like that when you actually try to integrate. Now, what is a server out here? The server is nothing but an API. Keep that in mind. So the server is an API. What you're trying to integrate, because what the problem statement that we had a discussion on, we said that, okay, I'll be having an API and want to integrate that API into my front end, which is basically a client. So client is a front end part, and it's requesting for an API which will come and flow into your front end application, and that's what you're going to display to your user. So that's what we'll be doing out there, right? So what happens is that a client makes a request to the server processes that request and sends you back to the data. Cool. Now, along with that, there is something which I just want to explain you. Have you ever heard about request methods? Anyone who has any idea about request methods? How many of you have no idea on request methods? Yeah. Like no idea. Just give me a no. If you don't have any idea about what request methods are, just give me a no, and we'll try to understand that. Okay. Other people? Just want to know, because yeah, exactly. So there are a lot of things. So request methods is a way how you're going to get the data, right? So there are a lot of request methods. For example, you have get, you have post, you have put, you have something called as patch, you have something called as delete, and there are a lot of others as well, but these are like most commonly used. Now, okay, now let's see how many of you actually know. How many of you actually know a difference between put and patch, by the way? Put and patch. How many of you know about put and patch? Like what is a like difference between put and patch? If let's suppose you're sitting for an interview and somebody asks you what's the difference between put and patch, what are you gonna say? Okay, no idea. Other people, any idea about put and patch? Okay, cool. So let me actually just going to give you an explanation on the things. Actually, both are for updating. Put and patch are both for updating. But let me actually give you on get. So get is basically when you're just trying to read the data from the database. Just read data from the API. So you'll be using get request. Then there is something called as post request. If you want to write something in the API, Put is when you're trying to edit something in the API. And patch also makes an edit, but we'll be talking about the differences. There is a difference between put and patch. And delete is when you're trying to delete something from the API. Okay. So depending upon what do you want to do on that API, you'll have to mention that in the request. So when you'll be sending requests from a client side to server side, you'll have to specify that what will I be doing with your API. Either I'll be reading the information, or I'll be writing the information, or I'll be editing the information, or I'll be deleting the information. Now, for when you use put and patch, yeah, for put, it's like you can just think about it of editing something of the database by keeping some things stagnant and some part editable. For example, if you have certain fields, if let's suppose you have ID, name, and designation, but you want to keep ID as the way it is, but all you need to change is just the name and the designation. So you'll use put request. Patch request is basically the whole updation wherein you want to update all the fields at one go. Maybe you wanna edit, you want to edit the name, even if you want to edit the designation. If you want to edit the whole information out of it, you'll use something which is called as patch. So if you're doing a partial updation or a partial edit, in that case, you'll use put. If you're going to make a complete edit out of that data, you're going to use patch request. I hope the difference is clear. Both are used for edit purposes, but what kind of edit you want to make? Is it going to be a partial update or a partial edit or a fully completely edit? That completely depends on you. So put it for partial edit and patch is for a full edit if you want to make it that way. Cool stuff, cool beans. So these are request methods that you'll be using. Either you're going to read the data, going to write the data, you're going to put the data, or you're going to, delete the data and stuff like that. So in our session, most probably we are only going to be more focused towards the get part. If you want to like get too much into it, I'll at the end of the session, I'm going to share you out with the video. You can go around and see how you can design an API which handles all of these requests, right, onto different URLs and stuff like that. So at the end, if you're interested, I'm going to share you up with the earlier session of mine. Around 12, around 1, I'll say 1:30, I guess. Around 1:30. We started at 11, right? So it's not going to happen. Patch request is going to, the patch request is going to make a full edit no matter what. That is why when you're making a request to an API, it actually asks you for the request method, because it's just wanna go, because the backend code, if you'll have a look into backend, you'll understand the question that you're asking as of now, because there are specific methods which are being written in order to handle all of these requests at certain given time. Else, if you're gonna make a patch request and you're gonna make a partial edit, it will throw you an error saying you cannot do that because that's not mentioned in the backend wala code, right? So that is something that you'll have to be very, very specific about. Cool beans. Aage chale? Should we move ahead? Should we move ahead? Cool. So I hope the requests part is clear to everyone, that what are requests. So requests would be having few headers and requests would have few methods including with the same. So make sense? Does this make sense? Should we move ahead? We done with requests? Quick. All right. So let's actually move to the response part. Oops. So let's move to the response part. Now, if you talk about response, there are a few things that you have to keep in mind if you're talking about the response. For response, there is something which is called as response. In response, there are a lot of things that you have to keep in mind. For example, one thing is called as response code. Have you ever heard about response code, or this is also sometimes called as response status? Have you ever heard, or have you ever tried this? If you're trying to go to a website which does not exist, what will happen? Think. If you're trying to access a URL, or if you're trying to access a website which just does not exist in the internet, what's going to happen? 404. Now keep in mind, Karthik said 404, right? What is that 404? This is called as response status. No, it's gonna 404, right? 404, there are few ports that you actually know already. 404 is basically for resource not found, right? And all of these responses that comes from the server side to client side, there also exist alongside with the response, there exists something which is called as response status. And this response status basically varies from 101 to around 599. Okay, right? So there are few which are like 101 to 199, and these are like informational statuses, right? Then you have 200 to 299, you have success information or success status. Then you have 300 to 399, which are like I think this is client error. Yeah, I think it's client error. And then you have 400 to 499, which is called as server errors. Oh, these are redirects. Yeah. I think these are redirects. Yeah, these are redirects, and 500 to 599 are basically your client errors. I believe these are your client errors. right? So even when you talk about this thing, which is like 404, so in this 404, when you say that, the file not found or resource not found, so in this case, you're making a request to a server which is not responding you back because that server doesn't exist. So it just gives you an error of 404 saying the resource is not found. Okay, so these are called as response codes or response statuses, which actually gets returned from the server to the client, depending upon what kind of request you have made, right? Depending upon that, the data would be flown, or maybe the error would be flown along with the response code. Just by looking at the response code, you get an idea where I did something wrong, or if everything is okay or not. So keep that in mind. What we'll be using is the success status. Keep in mind 200 is for okay. So I'm just gonna give you a few certain things. 200 is for okay. I think 401 is for forbidden. When like something is private and you're trying to access that, it's gonna give you a 401, which is like forbidden. 404, you already know that it's kind of like response or resource not found. 200 is basically but just for indicating that everything is okay and stuff like that. Okay, cool. All right, so should we move ahead? So let's go around and integrate something, shall we? Shall we go around and integrate something? You ready? Are you ready for the coding part? How many of you are not scared of coding? Be honest. How many of you are not scared of coding? Is there anyone in the session who is scared of coding? Or maybe who is like, I don't want to code too much, or scared? How many of you are like actually like being like, oh, now this is going to be a very, oh, you're lazy. Oh, I can relate with you. Money, I can relate with you. We are on the same boat, man. Yeah, we are on the same boat. Okay, so I'll make this like very simple. Okay, how about if I keep the code very, very simple? So even if you don't get one line, even just one line, do let me know and I'll try to explain it. All right, let's keep it that way. Nah, it's fine. It's fine. You'll Priyanka, you'll get it, man. You'll get it. Don't worry. Just practice. Just practice as much as you can, and you'll get it. Trust me, you'll get it. So you ready? Let's do it. देखते हैं, like if we'll be able to integrate it or not, and then we'll move ahead and do something. Shall we? Shall we do it? Shall we do it? Cool. All right. So don't get scared. I'm telling you, don't get scared. I'm not gonna write a lot of fancy code. I don't believe in writing a lot of fancy code. All right. So I'm just gonna keep it very, very simple. I'm going to explain you JavaScript in between, and I'm gonna, share it out with you people as well at the end of this. I'm just gonna upload it to GitHub, and just in case if you'd be interested, you can put you can clone it down, and you can do a lot of things on that. All right. So let me actually create a project, and let me actually just call this as let's call it as an Ajax project. Okay, and you'll see that it's just an empty folder, nothing hard and fast, just an empty folder. All right. Now the text editor that I'll be using, again, you can use pretty much anything that you want. If you want to use Atom, you can use Atom. If you want to use VS Code, you can use VS Code. I'm just gonna keep it very simple to VS Code. All right. So most of the web dev wala thing, I'll just completely do it on VS Code. So let me actually go to VS Code. Which is the best editor, VS Code or Sublime? Definitely VS Code. Definitely VS Code. Right, let's keep it in. Oh, and by the way, this is React. I just wanted to just tell you. So I was teaching it like yesterday. So yeah, you might have seen a React project being open up there. The code is in Java. The code is in JavaScript. Okay, the code is going to be very, very simple. Very, very simple. So start करें. Shall we start? Shall we start? Yeah. Okay, cool. So let's make an application out of it. Let's make an application. But before we go around and look into application, I just wanted to tell you a few things on JavaScript. So just in case everybody feels comfortable, I'm just going to make an index HTML. Right? I'm just creating a normal HTML file. I'm not going to write a lot of things inside it. I'm just going to make a simple HTML file out here. And in the body tag, I am just going to write a H1, which is just a heading. And inside that, I'm just going to say Ajax course. All right. Very simple thing. And down at the bottom, I'm just going to include a script tag. Like script tag, for the people who have not worked on HTML, let me tell you that in script tag, what you write in script tag is you include a file, and that file actually contains stuff for your JavaScript. So if you want to like include a JavaScript file, so you'll write it inside the script tag and just mention a source, which is called as an attribute to a tag. And in the attribute, you're going to mention a file. Now out here, I'm just going to create a file, and I'm just going to call this main.js. So JS is basically the extension for JavaScript. And in the source, I'm just going to keep it main.js. So I'm just going to give the link of the file, which is going to be out here. Arun, describe with the tags in the head. In the head, all right. So in the meta tag, if you'll just have a look at it, and I'm just not going to take a lot of time because it's not something relevant to, I'm not going to take a lot of time on HTML. But if you have a look on the meta tag are basically used, or the head, the whole head element is used to describe the metadata related. Do you guys, how many of you know what metadata is? How many of you know what a metadata is? Or how many of you have not heard about this term called as metadata? No idea. No, do not know. Okay. Okay. Yeah. No. Let me tell you what a metadata is. All right. Okay, let me actually ask you a question. Let me ask to Naveen. Naveen, hi. Naveen, can you hear me? Because Naveen knows, so I'm just gonna ask him the question. Naveen, can you hear me? Just a yes or no. Quick yes or no in the chat. Quick. Let's not waste time. Okay, so I think Naveen has felt a little been like, oh, okay, cool, great. So Naveen, how old are you? Naveen, how old are you? 24. Let's say Naveen is 24. All right, not just let's say he's 24. So Naveen, 24. Okay, is it a number or is it a string? Like number wala 24 or a string wala 24? Number wala. This is a metadata. Now, the age, which I just asked from Naveen, the age was a data related to Naveen. But what I asked is a second question, that what is a data type of the age? This is an integer. That means metadata is called as the data related to the data. That means if you have a data and you're trying to keep any additional data related to that data that you have grabbed. For example, if I'm talking about the age is a data. And I want to keep something and additional information like what is the type of the data that is going to come inside. This will be a metadata. So a data related to a data is called as a metadata. I hope this makes sense. I hope the example makes sense to you. Does the example make sense? This is called as metadata. So in this case, when you talk about the HTML, what is the data that we are most interested in? The data out here is going to be something in the body tag, right? This is our data. And whatever metadata you have to mention about this data, you have to write it in the head element. So can you show how to connect front end and back end in sample project, please, to save and redirect the data? So that's what we will be doing, Abhilasha. We will integrate front end with the back end. And we'll design a very sample project. Okay. And at the end, I'm just going to upload it up on GitHub and you can download the source code if you're interested in. Okay. So that's what we'll be doing. Okay. So in this case, if you'll have a look on the body, if you'll just have a look on the body, this body is the data that we are interested in right now. And whatever the metadata that is going to be related, it's going to be inside this head element that you're seeing out here. From this is the start tag and this is the end tag, and anything in between is the metadata related to this data which is out here. So you'll see something called as character set UTF-8. This is like a standardization which is done when you're designing web pages. UTF-8 is a character set like which is a encoding. It's an encoding character set. Encoding character sets are being like, if you're writing something in English, there are few things or few letters that your browser should know, right? Am I not audible? Aishwarya says that I'm not audible. Am I audible, guys? Yeah. So Aishwarya, please check on your internet connection. All right. So in this case, if you'll just have a look on the meta, which is the character set is basically an encoding that you do, and UTF is one of the encodings that is like most commonly used in most of the documents. All right. The next thing that you'll see out here is Xua Compatible. Now this is going to be the equivalent of what will be the compatible UIs for this, and the compatible UI is going to be IE Edge. That means this application is going to work from edge to edge. That means it's going to take a full screen. Okay, so whenever you'll be running this application is automatically going to take a full screen. That is what you're mentioning, that whatever data that you'll be having, it's going to be a full screen. All right, now next thing is the meta tag for viewport. Now viewport is basically the device that you're working on right now. It could be a mobile device, it could be a tablet, it could be a laptop, it could be a very small phone, it could be a very large phone, it could be a lot of different things, right? So in that case, you have to mention this viewport, and inside that it's going to be device width, and the initial scale is going to be kept as 1.0. Okay, so these are few of the metadata which are related to this data. You do not need to worry about that. This is like pretty standard. You're going to see the same stuff over and over again in pretty much all of the HTML. That is, it's called as a boilerplate code. And you will see that the moment I pressed exclamation and pressed a tab, you'll see that the boilerplate came automatically. So you do not need to worry about that. The only thing that you actually need to worry about is going to be the body part. All right, rest head part is like it's nothing hard and fast. You'll see that there is a title, and let's actually change the title. Let's call this Ajax. Ajax, right? So I'm just gonna save that. I hope the HTML is pretty fine for everyone. I hope the HTML is fine. I'm asking it to everyone, even just a single person who's having doubts, please ask me, because at the end, this masterclass is just for you people. Can we do it on the notepad? Definitely you can do it on the notepad. Yeah, cool. All right. So now the HTML part is done, and let's go to main.js. And in the main.js, I'm just gonna write console.log. And console log, for you people who are coming from Java background, it's exactly like system.out.println. If you're coming from C background, it's printf. If you're coming from C++, it's cout. If you're coming from any background, it's just a way of running something. Oh, it's a way how you're going to display something, right? It's just a statement to print something. So you can just understand it in JavaScript. This is the thing that you use, which is called as console.log, and whatever you're gonna write in between will be printed out. So let's say I'm just gonna print out it works, right? Just to know that this file is included. So if I save this, now I'm using an extension which is called as live server. You can use this live server if you're interested in. So I'm using something called as live server, which is an extension in VS Code, and you can install it. You can see that I've already installed. Now, what does this live server do? I'm just going to put any HTML backup in the live server, and I do not need to refresh the page over and over again. Whatever changes that I'll be making, it will automatically reflect because I'm doing the development, right? So in this case, you can go around, and if you're working on VS Code, you can just install this extension. This is going to save a lot of time. The moment you'll be saving the application, it will be automatically reloaded for you. So it's an auto reload kind of like a thing. Yeah, it will implement the changes then and there. You do not need to, refresh the page and stuff like that. And how you're going to do that? Just right click on the file and just say, open it with live server. Let me actually grab this, and I'm just going to open up with the Chrome rather, right? So let's do that. So let me actually go to Google Chrome. Let me paste in with this. Cool beans. So this is what you see. Everyone can see this? Everyone can see this? So this was the output that we were interested in, right? So we just wrote a heading, which is Ajax course, and we included up a script tag, which is this main.js, which is this going to be. Now, for any JavaScript to work, there is something called as console, right? So this console is available for every web browser. Now, you can be working on Mozilla, you can be working on Safari, you could be working on Chrome, you could be working on anything. So console is pretty much available in every web browser. And if you're working on Chrome, which majority of the people you would be, you can just tap out here, just go to more tools and go to the developers tool. Okay, so just go to developers tool, and there would be a small little pop-up that will be going out here, and there you can see a console. And in here in the console, you'll see that it says it works because that's what I've written in the JavaScript file. So whatever I'll be printing by saying console.log, this is where it's going to be printed out. I hope this is making sense. Yeah, the command is Control-Shift-I. If you're working on Mac, it's going to become Control-Command-I. So it's up to you, whatever you want to do that. Okay, make sense? Guys, does this make sense? I hope the basic JavaScript part is okay. Cool beans. Now, before we go into and do something on Ajax, there are a few things that I just want to be very, very clear about. When you talk about JavaScript, I'm just going to give you a little basics on JavaScript. Now in JavaScript, when you talk about data types, okay, just want to know how many of you people are comfortable in what programming language, because I'm just gonna take a reference to that programming language and then gonna explain it to you. Java, Python, C. Okay. C, Java, .NET, Java. Okay, Java. I see a lot of Java developers out here. C#, Java, Python. So okay, I'm just gonna give it's a lot of things. All right, so I'm just gonna explain it to you in like pretty much the same way. So I think Java is the best. Oh, nice. Java is good. Java is definitely good. You can do a lot of things with Java. Yeah, C is the daddy of every programming language. So you might have seen a lot of memes being like Python is good, and then somebody says that, oh, Python is designed in C, and then he'll be like, what? So that happens. A lot of people are like very fan of. How many of you like fan of Python? Anybody here is like a Python fan of stuff like that? Yeah, I knew it. Yeah, for data structures algorithm, I'll recommend that don't use Java, rather use something like C and C++. That's completely up to you. Okay, just a little second now. Sorry. Huh? So yeah, so there are a lot of people who are like fan for Python and stuff. So that's like pretty cool stuff. Cool. So let's come back. So shall we start? So let's start with like very basic data types. All right. So you might have seen a lot of data types like, if you're coming from a Java background, you might have seen like integer, string, Boolean and stuff like that. So let's talk about the data types which are used in JavaScript. Shall we do that? Shall we do that? Let's have a look on few base. No, there is nothing called as integer. Cool. So when you talk about the data types, Valapa, the data types here which are used in JavaScript, there are typically 5 of them, which is called as number, string, Boolean, null, and undefined. I know this is not going to make a lot of sense to a lot of people who will be like, null and undefined, what is this? Yeah, sorry to say, but this is used in the data types part. So let's have a quick recap. UTF, it's a UTF, ये वाला UTF पूछ रहा? Is this the UTF that you're asking about? UTF-8? Is this what you're talking about? UTF-8? Raki? UTF-8, I just told you, it's a character encoding set. It's a character encoding set. You can go around. It's a standard. You can go around and search for UTF-8. Yeah, it's a Unicode. So it's like a standardization. So if I ask you what is ISI mark is standard, right? It's a standardization of something. So it's a standardization of the character sets. It's the symbols and what letters and all of these things would be used in the document. That's what it's going to be told by. Yeah, not exactly ASCII. ASCII is like different, but it's a code. What symbols, characters would be used in the document, that would be the case. Okay. It's fine. I see you are joining this masterclass out of from the learning perspective. So I just want to be like very, very sure that everything and anyone who is joining this session should actually get something out of it. So I'm just going to take it like very slow. So that's fine. So I'm just going to explain you with few data types. I'm going to explain it with numbers, string, booleans, null, and undefined. So there are a few things now. Are you ready? Shall we start? Let's quickly do that because there are a lot of things that we'll be doing at the end of the session. So let's do that. Shall we? Yeah. Now, let's suppose if I now in JavaScript, you can create variables, right? So I hope everybody know the concepts of variables, like where you create variables in Java, like for example, int a is equals to 10 or string b is equals to whatever you want, stuff like that. So you can actually create variables in JavaScript as well. But in JavaScript, you can create variables like 3 times, right? It's in 3 ways. Either you can use something which is called as let. I can just be like let number is equals to, let's say, 10. or I can, and yeah, one thing more that a lot of people get confused with, JavaScript is open, that even if you put a semicolon or even if you don't, it's completely fine. It's an interpreted language. It runs the code line by line. So it's completely fine with that. So even if you put a semicolon or even if you don't, that's completely up to you. I generally don't prefer it using it, but if you do, you can use it, right? So if let's suppose if I say var number is equals to, or let's say var age, let's keep it var age or let age. And let's say var name, let's say name is, let's say Karthik. Karthik is the one who replied last. So let's say Karthik. All right. Now I can, or the third thing that you can use is, let's say it's const is cool. Karthik is cool. Yeah, Karthik is definitely cool because he's joined the session. Yeah. Cool. So const is cool. Let's let me actually say const a, and let's keep it null. And let's keep in another thing. Let's call this const b is equals to, and let's call this undefined. Cool. So these are few keywords that you can use, right? These are all numbers, and this is a string, this is a boolean, and this is a null, and this is an undefined. Now, just in case if you want to find out, find the type of the data type of any variable, you can use something which is called as type of. All right. So if I just do type of, you can get that. So I'm just gonna print console log, let's say type of, let's say I want to find out the type of age. So if I save that, you'll see that it says number. So number is the first primitive data type that we have, right? Similarly, if I console log the type of, let's say name, and save that, you should get string, which is a data type, right? If you get console log of type of is school and save that, you should get boolean because that's a primitive data type. Log of type of. Now this is a thing that people get confused with. Just have a look. If I just write a, I'll tell you the difference between varlet and const. Just give me 1 second. If I just say type of a, what do you expect as an output? What do you expect as an output? Because this was a number, this was a string, this was a boolean, this is null, so it typically should come out null. But if you'll save this, it's going to say object, right? And if you'll just go to Google, and just write type of null in JavaScript, you'll find out that this is basically a bogus from the this is a mistake which is basically done from the JavaScript side. So don't get confused with that. So if you'll just see out there, if you'll scroll down, you'll see in JavaScript, null is a special singleton object which helps in the signature of no value, right? So in turn, in the backend, your null is actually an object. So that is why it returns you with an object. So this is a mistake from JavaScript side. Typically, it should have come out as null, but it turns out to be that it comes out to be as an object. So don't worry about that. So so you'll see null JavaScript is null is nothing. It's supposed to be something that doesn't exist. So unfortunately in JavaScript, the data type of the null is object. So keep that in mind, that why is it object? So it's a bogus from the JavaScript side. So don't get confused on that. And this is one of the questions which are like very frequently asked in the interviews, that what is the data type or the type of null? And keep that in mind. It's supposed to be an object, just because JavaScript asked it to be an object. So that's up to JavaScript. But if you'll have a look on the type of B and save it, it's going to be undefined, because that's what it's going to be. So there are 5 primitive data types that you can use out here. So I hope this is like pretty okay for everyone, that what this is. Clear? Are we clear with this? So let's move ahead then. So I'm just going to comment that out. So now let me actually talk about, the few of the data types or data structures which are like used in data structures in JavaScript. So let's start with something with like, first let's start with arrays. Now for the people who are coming from Python background, they won't find it amusing. For the people who are coming from C and Java background, you're going to find it like a little absurd. What is undefined? Undefined, the meaning is which is like not defined. For example, if I just keep let value and I just declare this value up, and if I try to find out the value of val and save this, you're going to see that it's undefined. Matlab that exists in the memory, but it's not defined. The value is not defined. For the things where the value is not defined, you're gonna get it undefined. Matlab that exists, but the value doesn't exist inside that. So it's kind of like an empty variable kind of like situation. So that's what you call this as undefined. So that exists but doesn't has any value, or it's not defined. That's called as undefined. All right. So shall we talk about arrays? Let's talk about arrays. All right. How to use arrays in JavaScript. Let's do that. Now, arrays in JavaScript, or the array, the typical definition for every student that they have learned is when you talk about arrays. Okay, let me ask it from you. What is an array? In terms of Java, I'm only talking about to the people who are coming from Java and C background. What is an array that you have learned? A contiguous data type, right? Or I should just say it's a collection of similar type of data type. Yeah. Yeah. Can I say that? It's a collection of similar type of data type. Yeah. Let's keep it very simple. Now, in the case when you're talking about arrays in JavaScript, it's kind of like a thing wherein it's a collection of data types, but not similar data types, right? You can collect a number of different data types inside one single array, right? Again, yeah, it's not homogeneous, rather it's heterogeneous out here. It's not homogeneous in the, yeah, you can just assume this as a structure in C, but not exactly structure, because in the structure that is going to be a little different than as compared to that of the structure, because the structure in C doesn't have indices. If you remember, it doesn't have indexes. Yeah. So in this case, arrays here in the JavaScript, again, it's going to be indexed, but it's going to contain multiple data types. So let's say, for example, if I just say const is, oh yeah, and one more thing, I just want to tell you a few things about const variable. If you actually try to change the value of b to something else, let's say I just want to keep it 20 now and save this, it will throw you an error. It's going to say assignment to a constant variable is not accessible out here. But rather, if you just want to change the value from age to something of another age, 20, let's say, and if I just want to like say console log the age, you can actually change the values for them. You could see now it's 10. Oh, rather it was 10. I just kept it 10. How stupid of me. So if let's say if I save this, it's gonna be 15, right? So the values which you're keeping it in let and var, you can actually change them. For the values you're keeping in const, you cannot change them. Even you cannot do something like that this as well. So if let's say if I just say const val, if I just keep declaring it and save this, you'll see it will also give me an error that you have not initialized the value. So for a constant variable, you have to do the initialization and the declaration at one given line itself. So keep that in mind. All right. So const is like more secure way of writing code. Okay. So I'm just gonna comment that out. So let's say if I create an array. So let's say I'm just gonna keep it fruits, or let's keep this ARR rather. Let's not call it fruit. So let's say if I just keep it, yeah, we have to declare the declaration, and initialization and declaration happens at one single go. So if I let's say 1, 2, 3, hey, true, null, and undefined. If I keep all the values out here in tag, and then if I just do console log the array, save, and you'll find out the values are in tagged out there, which is having index. As you can see out there, it's indexed. Its values are starting from 0 and ending at 4, right? And there are a lot of things that you can do out here if you're interested in that way. You can just be like console log. Yeah, JavaScript is like very, very popular. Do you actually just want to like tell you, do you know that when we landed onto Mars, the satellite that we actually sent to Mars in the Mars Wala project that we had, do you know what programming language was used? It was just plain JavaScript, just JavaScript and nothing else. JavaScript is very, 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 very powerful language, like very powerful. You can do a lot of things with JavaScript. So for the people who are coming from Python background, I'll just highly suggest that you get your hands dirty on JavaScript, because that's going to be the next upcoming Python for data science and stuff like that. Now it has started using on NLPs, that started working on KNN for the people who are coming from data science and stuff. It has now inbuilt, it has started building on models now. So I'll just say that you get your hands dirty on JavaScript, and I'll give you resources where you can find out a lot of resources for JavaScript. That is something that you can do. All right. So yeah. Now, if I console log, now there are few methods which are, involved with the arrays. So I'm just going to discuss few, not going to go around in too much. So let's say if I just do console log arr.length, which is like pretty standard, like everywhere. And if I save this, you'll see the length is going to come out as 5 because it contains 5's element. Now the accessing is going to remain the same. If you talk about the access part, the access is like pretty much the same. And I can just come out here and just be like ARR of 0 and save that. It's going to give me 5. ARR of 1, it's going to give me, oh, why is ARR of 1 giving me ARR of 0, save, it's 5. ARR of 2, save. Oh, okay, true. And you'll see ARR of 1, if you'll save that, it's going to give you hey. ARR of 3, save that, it's going to give you null. ARR of 4, and if you save that, it's going to give you undefined. Cool. So you can do that. All right. Yeah. Below was, I was just looking at this 5 and I was like, what is happening? Okay, cool. Never mind. So let's come to the array methods. You can actually check if something is an array. Check if something is array. So if let's suppose you have console log, and if I just say array, which is a class dot is array, and you pass on, let's say this ARR and save that, this should give you true. But if I just pass, let's say A, which is, I think, the null property, and if you save that, it's going to give you false, because null is not an array, but whereas if you talk about the ARR is an array, so it's going to give you true. All right, you can do that. Now let's talk about, so I hope the arrays are pretty cool for everyone. Arrays are okay. So arrays, I just wanted to tell you that it's a heterogeneous kind of like a combination of different data types. Cool. So you can contain a number of different data types inside array as if you compare it with, you know, with C, C++, and Java. So this is like pretty cool stuff. Let's talk about objects, shall we? Let's talk about objects, because most probably we'll be working out here this area, because I'm teaching you this because this will be used in the Ajax part. When we'll be doing Ajax, we're going to make use of that. So everybody's here, just pay attention. Everyone is here. Quick yes if you are here, then we're gonna move ahead. Right? Yeah, cool beans. So let's talk about, can we use include here? Yeah, you can use include, but now we don't work on include, rather we use import. So you can use import. Include is not used, it's deprecated. You used to work on include, but now that include is now changed from include to import. So we use import in JavaScript, not include. All right. So let's talk about objects. All right. Now let's talk about objects. Now objects in the JavaScript is exactly like as that of the structure in C, right? But little more advanced, as you'll see later on. So if let's suppose if I'm just gonna create, let's say const person, and the way of using it is that if you're creating a variable and you're keeping that variable inside curly brackets, always keep in mind it's always going to be an object. Second thing, that if you're keeping something in square brackets in case of JavaScript, is always going to be an array. As you can see out here, the values that I gave in, it took it as the array just because I kept it in square brackets. The square brackets in JavaScript denotes array, and curly brackets in JavaScript denotes objects. So let's say I'm just going to keep it, let's say first name. And this is how I create an object. Let's suppose the first name of this person is going to be, or let's actually keep it, let's actually keep it employee. All right. And let's give it an ID. And let's say the ID is 123, or let's give it a 101, right, comma. Then I'll have a first name. Let's suppose the first name is Vinay. Let's say last name is, let's say, Kumar. All right. Let's say the age property. Let's say I don't curse me for this. All right. So I'm just gonna be like 24. I don't know what your age is, but I'm just doing it. Let's say the department, DEPT. Let's suppose he's from he's from SDE department, software development. Let's say technology, that the technologies that you work in. So let's say the technologies part. Now you'll see out here that inside an object, I can contain an array, right? So let's say he is pretty good with HTML, or let's keep it like he's good with JS, JavaScript. He's good with Node.js. He is good with, let's say, he's good with Java. All right. And he is good with, let's say, MongoDB. Okay. And then I can just do address, and I can contain an object inside an object in the cases of objects in JavaScript. So where should we create objects? Can we create objects wherever we want? Yeah, you can create objects wherever you want. It's all right. So one thing that I just want to be very, very clear on JavaScript part, JavaScript is a multi-paradigm language, right? You can make JavaScript completely object-oriented. That is something that you can do, or you can just keep it functional programming if you want. So it's going to be just like functional programming. So what I'm doing is basically functional programming. You can create objects wherever and whenever you want. Like it's completely up to you. It's not like in cases of when you're coming from Java, what do? You create a class, and inside that class you create a main, and inside that main you have to do all of these things. Yeah. So in the object, it's going to be like a key value pair. So in this case, the ID is the key and 101 is the value. So it's a key and then this is the value, the key and the value, the key and the value, and key and the value here is going to be the array part. Okay. Yeah, you'll get the recordings. You'll get the recording of this uploaded in the YouTube channel, which I'm just gonna link it down at the end of the session. Don't worry about that. All right. So what you can do, you can keep an array inside an object, and you can also contain another object inside an object. So that is something that you can do. Now, if let's suppose if I'm going to keep this address, which is going to be an object. Now, in this case, what I'm going to do is to keep it, let's say the street. Let's say the street. Let's suppose you live in street. Let's suppose 101, and then we have the street. Let's say the town. Let's call it town. Let's say. I will not be able to do it on WhatsApp because I most probably won't be sharing out the. You can ask me up on LinkedIn if you're interested, or maybe most probably I'm gonna end it, give it to you at the end of the session. So just if you're interested, you can just DM me up on LinkedIn. That's fine. So let's say town. Let's say Chinatown. So actually just for fun. Let's say city. Let's say the city is Bombay. Let's say the state. I'm just gonna keep it. Let's suppose Maharashtra. All right. Now let's quickly have a look on how to access these values. So for access, if you'll just console log the employee and save that, you're going to see the object out here, right? Can you see this object? So this object contains address, and in the address you'll see city, street, state and town and stuff like that. In the technology, you'll find out there is an array which is JS, Node.js, Java, and all of these things, right? You'll find ID, the first name, department, age, the whole address. Now, the point here arises how to access these values. The access part is like very easy in case of employee, or in case, well, I'm calling it an employee, in the case of objects. So if let's suppose if you want to access the first name, so I can just come out and be like first name is, I can just concatenate it and just be like employee dot first name and save that. You'll see the first name is and Vinay, right? So right, so I'm just gonna copy this out real quick, and let's suppose I'm interested in his age, so I'm just gonna say age is, and you got the point, and I'm just gonna say employee dot age. Save that. You should see age is 24. Now keep in mind please try to understand this and try to wrap your head around with this. Let's suppose I want to find out this Java. I want to access Java, right? If let's suppose if I want to keep it Java, yeah, this is called as string literals. I don't want to go out there. This is ES6. I just don't want to go out there because this is going to take a lot of time. In JavaScript, I can take a whole month. I can almost take 6 months and teach somebody JavaScript. JavaScript is very, very huge, right? I can literally teach somebody JavaScript for like for 6 months, honestly speaking. There is a lot of things that you can explore with Java. I'm just showing you you're just scratching out the surface for JavaScript, to be very honest. And at the end, I'm just gonna show you, cool things at the end, but wait for that. Okay, now let's suppose if I want to like access Java, like which is a part of employee, and from employee from technology, which in turn is an array, and from array, this is the second most position, right? So in that case, it's going to be log. I'm just gonna say technology is, and see how I'm gonna do that. Yeah, good. So from employee, I'm going to go to the technology part. And because this technology is an array, I want to access the second element of that array. So if I save that, now you'll see Java out here. I hope this line number 63 makes sense. Anup, just go to file and just create a new file. That's it. Okay. So I hope the line number 63 makes sense to everyone, that how you're going to access an array inside of an object, right? And then again, you can, of course, can access the value from, so let's say the city is, and it's going to be very simple. You just come out here and you can be like employee.address.city. So because just because it's an array, well, just because it's an object, you can just put a dot notation out there. You see that the city is Bombay. Cool. Guys, are we good till here? If you're good till here, just give me a yes. We'll move to the most important part for which I explained you JavaScript. This is going to be new for the people who are coming from any background, for that matter, any background. You might have not seen something like that, but I'm just going to show it to you. Okay. Yeah, I'm a SME at Apple. Yeah, I work at Apple. Once again, the last topic as in like, yeah, I'm just busy in a second. I'll just connect out with you just after the session. Will that be fine, Vigneshwar? Will that be fine? Yeah. Yeah, cool. All right. So let's actually talk about array of objects. Shall we do that? If you're ready, what is an SME? SME means subject matter expert. SME means subject matter expert. I'm working at Apple, but I'm also associated with Innomatics as a senior software developer. So I take care of all the full stack things that goes on in Innomatics. So I'm responsible for that. Okay, so I'm handling both things together. Cool. So let's start with array of objects, shall we? Which branch? The FSD branch. Oh, you mean the branch for, you're talking about Apple? So I'm you know, the team lead of iOS development. So all the iOS work, we do it. So yeah. Cool. So should we move with array of objects then? Oh, that's fine. Should we move to array of objects? Yeah. Now this is going to be a little like more the reason that I'm teaching you JavaScript for the first time. So array of objects is basically a combination of both the arrays and objects. So what you can do in JavaScript, you have an option of, for let's say you have data, or let's actually call this to-dos, let's say. All right. Let's say there are a few things that you want to do and you're making a to-do list. So out here you can create an array wherein the objects will be the values inside it. I hope you're getting what I'm trying to explain you. LinkedIn. I'll give you my LinkedIn. Don't worry. I'll give you the LinkedIn. You can contact me up anytime. I hope this is making sense, guys. Abhi filakle, let's keep all of these things aside. We have a little short on time. Just try to understand this part. Now, can you see out here, rather than keeping primitive data type as the values in the indexes, what I can do in JavaScript, I can put objects in place of it. I hope this is making sense what I'm trying to do out here. Is it making sense? That in the array of objects, rather than putting primitive data type, I can put objects inside it, right? This is the same object, which I just explained it to you out here. Yeah. So this is why it's called as array of objects. So you are putting objects as a value rather than putting it as a primitive data type. So let me actually give you a little idea what do I mean. So let's say I have a to do, and inside that to do, I'm just going to put an ID, let's say 1, let's say task, let's say take out the trash. All right. And let's say is completed. Take out the trash. And let's say is completed. I'm very lazy, so I'll just say false. No, I didn't do that. Now I'll put a comma because this is going to be the next item, and then I'm going to put the same item out here, let's say. So I'm just going to copy this, paste this in here, and let's say I just wanted to have, let's say, lunch with friends. And yeah, I love eating, so let's say true. Cool. And let's say the next thing that I wanted to do was to take a meeting with the team. Let's say 3, and let's keep this 2. Let's take this as meeting with the team. And let's say, yeah, I did it. Like I was lazy, but I still did it. All right. So now if I try to console log these to-dos and save that, you'll see that it's going to be an array of objects wherein each of the object will be treated as an object. Can you see, well, treated as an index? Can you see that? Can you see that? That every object that you have is going to be treated with an index, and that index is going to contain the same object that you might have seen out here. Now the access part is more important. If you'll just have a look on the access is more important. So if I just want to access this task, let's say lunch with friends, I want to access that. It's very easy to access that. Now keep that in mind. It's an array of objects. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to say to-dos. Now in the to-dos, I'm going to access the first to-do, which in the index number 1 is going to be this one, and then I'm just going to say dot text. So if I save that, to-dos 1 dot task, task, save. So it's going to be lunch with friends. Make sense? Does this make sense? So how you're going to access that? You can access pretty much anything that you want. If you want to access that, you're going to say to-dos 2.id. If you want to keep anything for that matter, so you can do that. So are we good till here? Are we good till here? Are we good till here? Quick. Oh, that was just a fling. Actually, I was preparing for Apple and stuff like that. Yeah, you can text me up. I'll explain it to you. Don't worry. Cool. So let's move ahead and let's do something. Let me actually give you an idea about JSON. How many of you here doesn't have an idea about JSON? How many of you have like never heard about JSON? Quick, no idea. So Shar, you definitely would have an idea. Now JSON, or typically it's called as JSON. So JSON is called as JavaScript object notation. And why am I keeping this as a topic? Because this is the way how we communicate between servers, right? When I told you, because the whole thing that we wanted to do out here, if you remember, that we were making a request to the server was hitting us back with the response. So the communication that happens out here from a server to a client, that happens with the value or the data which is shared from the server to a client. It's shared in the form of a JSON. So let me actually tell you how the JSON looks like. Tool, which tool? This text editor you're talking about? Oh, VS Code. Yeah, you can just go to Google and just say VS Code download. It will take you to Microsoft's website. Just download it, install it. That's it. Okay, nothing hard and fast. So you can actually convert a whole array of objects into a JSON, right? And how does it looks like? Let's have a look. So if let's suppose I'll just say const response JSON, or just say response, just keep it response. And you can actually use it, which is called as JSON dot stringify. And you can just give it the value which you want to convert it into JSON, which is going to be to-dos. And now if you'll just have a look on the response and save that, response, PONSC, save, and you'll see something like this. Can you see this? If I just kind of could zoom out with this. Can you see this? Just have a look, and just have a look on the array of objects that we created. Can you find out any difference between a JSON and array of objects? Anyone? I just want to feel like, and for the people who know it, just please don't tell them. No, yeah, just don't tell them, but let them have a look. I just want everyone to feel like, yeah, this is little different as compared to array of objects. Good. Even if you'll see that, even if you talk about the index part, or even if you talk about the even the key part, which is like ID, task, or is completed, this is in the form of string. Can you see that? Can you see that? Everyone can see that? But what are we doing? Guys, does this make sense? So JSON is basically a way of sending data or wrapping your data in the form of string. So always keep in mind, if somebody asks you about JSON, so just tell him or her the whole data which is going to be passed on from one person to another person is going to be in the form of string. Yeah, just like a normal string. So now if you're good with this part, now I'm going to explain you with APIs. Are you interested? So shall we do that? Let's do that. Now I'm just going to tell you how API looks like. And the API which I'm going to be integrating today, it's going to be the GitHub API, which is called as api.github.com/users. And just have a look on this. Just have a look on the data part. Just to explain you this, I did whole of the JavaScript wala bit. So can you see that? So you'll see that it's a square bracket out here. That means it's an array, and you'll see an array of objects, putting it in a comma, but it's a JSON. You can see that because if you'll have a look on the object, even the key part is in the string values. Can you see that? So it's an array of objects, but rather because it's stringified, it's called as JSON. I hope this is making sense. I hope this is making sense, guys. This is making sense. Are you sure about it? Yeah. Now, why is this API so important for us, or what does this API is going to do for us? Yeah, you're missing it. Yeah, even yeah, it's like pretty cool. When you get used to of web development, you just cannot forget all of these things. Like if it's done. Oh, this is an API because this is the data of GitHub. So I'm just going to explain it to you. What does this mean? There is something which is called as avatar URL that you can see out here, which is basically a link. But if you'll just copy this link and put it in a new tab and gonna paste it, you'll see that it's typically a picture. Can you see that? So you are sharing the data from the server to the client in form of a string, which you can use and grab it and put it in your HTML, and you can do a lot of things with that. I hope this is making sense. Guys, is it making sense? That what is it? Right? And if you want to like access somebody's GitHub, yeah. If you want to access somebody's GitHub, you can actually just copy this out and go to the new link and paste this in, and it's gonna navigate to, oh, okay. Oh, this is the home URL. So if I just copy that and put it in the tab and paste this, it's gonna redirect you to the GitHub for that same person's GitHub. Can you see that? So this is his GitHub, right? So this is the data that you're trying to share from the server to the client, so that you can get this data, you can put it in your HTML, and you can create a third-party application out of it. For example, if you want to create a third-party application, which is something of a GitHub clone, you can use this data and could create, a complete project out of it, right? So this is something that you can do. So if you're interested, we can actually now go back and integrate this in the application, and let's make a beautiful application out of it. So shall we do that? Shall we do that? If you're ready, we can create the application out of it. Shall we? Okay, cool, pretty cool. All right, so let's do that. So let's go to the index.html, and let me actually create a complete different JavaScript file for that. Let me actually just call this Ajax.js. Ajax.js. And in the HTML, rather than including this main.js, I'm going to include the another file because I'm not going to make use of main.js. Main.js was just for your reference purposes. So I'm just going to say Ajax.js, and you'll see that it's nothing there. But if I just do console log hey and save, most probably this should work. Yeah, it works. All right. So let's use Ajax and integrate that API. You ready? You ready? If you're ready, we will begin. All right, so we will be learning Ajax. Now I'm going to make it very, very simple for you people. I'm going to break this whole Ajax thing into like pieces and blocks. Okay, so don't worry about that. So let's talk about Ajax. So Ajax is a way how you're going to communicate with the server. Typically in our case, it's going to be at the GitHub server. We're going to send a request to the GitHub server. GitHub server is going to look at into our request, and then it's going to send us back with a response. Like, so that's going to be the case. For that, the whole Ajax project, it's going to be the same every time. I'm just even going to show you a few projects which have used Ajax and integrated few things for the project which I just showed you. I'm going to show that project, and you'll realize that, oh, this is like very easy. If you know HTML, CSS, and a little bit of JavaScript, and if you use Ajax, you can build beautiful web applications out of it. I'm just going to show it to you, don't worry. All right, so in the Ajax part, what I'm going to do, I'm going to integrate the API GitHub. Now, in that case, I'm going to break this down into steps. So the step number one is to use a very important thing, which I was explaining to you, which is called as XML HTTP request. So this is basically a class, right? It's a class which is inbuilt in JavaScript. And in JavaScript, you can use a class called as XML HTTP request. This is a class, right? And using this class and creating, I hope you know the concepts of objects and classes. I believe so. I hope you have an idea about objects and classes and objects. How many of you have no idea about classes and objects, by the way? No idea on classes and objects? Everybody has an idea? All right, cool. So what we'll be doing, I'm just gonna give you an idea. We are going to make an object of this class, and I'm going to use that object in order to integrate the URL. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to create the object. So step number 1 is to create the object of XML HTTP class. So create object of XML HTTP class. All right. So we're gonna do that. So let's actually call this const, and let's call this XHR. No, I'm just keeping it XHR because this is a short for XML HTTP request. And I'm just going to create the object, and I'm just going to say new XML HTTP request, right? Just because it's a class, I'm just going to put, parentheses out of it. Cool. I hope the step 1 is clear. Step 1, create the object for XML HTTP request, right? Second thing that I'm going to do is to mention the URL that I'm going to integrate. So in this case, I'm just going to keep const URL, and that URL is going to be a string, and which is going to be HTTPS api.github.com/users. So if you'll see, this is the link that we have, right? So if you'll just have a look on the link, it's just this HTTPS api.github.com/users, which is going to contain the whole, the data part, which is going to be flown from server to the client, right? So this is the user. So step 1 is to create the object of XML HTTP request. Step number 2, very simple. Step number 2 is to open the channel for communication. What? Difference between const, let, var, keywords. So if we'll get a time, because the whole session is about Ajax, so let me actually complete Ajax. At the end, if you'll be having any doubts, you can stay, because a lot of people will be like, oh, this session is so lengthy and stuff like that. New is a keyword which is used for creating objects, right? Even in Java, if you create objects, you use this new keyword. All right. No, this is a class. XML HTTP request is a class. That's why you are making an object out of it. It's a class, as I just said. It's written out here. It's a XML HTTP request class. It's a class, not a function. It's a class. Rather, this XML HTTP request is a constructor. For the people who might have learned about, classes and objects and stuff like that, they did know what a constructor is. I believe you know what a constructor is. A constructor is used in order when you create an object, you use that constructor in order to give the values to the data types. I hope you know that. Guys, do you know that? I hope you know all of these things. No? Correct. Very good, Anu. Right? So I'll just highly will recommend for the people who doesn't know all of these things, you can just go around and learn. Oh, can you tell us? Okay, let me just complete this out. And then at the end, if you'll have any questions on, few basics like OOPS, like object-oriented programming, or difference between var, let, and const, we can do that at the end of the session. So if you could allow me, because we are running short on time. Right, so the main purpose is to integrate stuff, and once we'll be done with that, we can have a look on it. So will that be fine? I hope you won't mind that. Is it fine? Is it fine? Sure. Are you sure? Chalo, cool. Now, for step 2, what I'm going to do, I'm just going to open the channel for communication between the client and the server. So what will I do? I am just going to say that XHR, which is the object that we have just created, and I'm going to tap onto a function which is called as open. So open does what? Opens this channel for communication. What is happening to my keyboard? Not right. So in this, if you remember, I just explained it to you that if you're making a request, you should have to mention the method of the request. In this case, I'm interested in reading the data from the API. So in this case, it's going to be a get request. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to say that, hey, open, I am going to have a get request to the URL that I've just mentioned out here. I hope this is making sense. But what have I written? So I'm just opening a channel of communication, right? Which is going to be a get request to this URL, and I'm going to read the data from the API. I hope this is making sense. Line number 8. Line number 8. Pretty cool. Cool. So now in here, what I'm going to do, now I'm going to get the data. Or I'm just going to say I'm going to load the data. How do we load the data? It's very simple. We're just going to say XHR.onLoad, and onload is going to be performing a function. It's going to make a function, right? So what we are going to do, we're going to say that onload is going to be a function. It's going to execute a function, all right? And what is that function? It's going to be, that function is going to be that if the xhr dot status is going to be 200. Now, if somebody can explain me why have I written line number 12, that if the function, let's call this onload, or rather, let me actually create just 1 second. Let me actually not give this name, or rather, let's keep it this way. Yeah, correct. So I'm just going to keep it this way. I'm just going to say function, and I'm just going to keep it this way because this is going to be more professional way of doing it. So I'm just going to say xhr.status, and I'm just going to check if the status is 200. That means the connection that I was trying to explain it out here, where I was just putting a connection or was opening a connection for the communication between the client and the server. If that succeeded, that means I should get a response code of 200. And if I get the response code of 200, then what I'm going to do, I'm just going to say console log is that I'll get xhr.response text, right? So step number 3. So this is step number 3. Step number 3 is to load the data or get the data. Okay. So how do we load the data? By using a function which is called as onload. So I'm just going to say xhr.onload, which is going to perform a function. And this function is just going to check if the status, if the response status is success. And for success, you know that it's going to be 200. So that's what we are checking. So we say if xhr.status is 200, then log the data that is coming from the server to the client. And then the last step, step number 4, just going to be send the request, right? Because at the end, we have to send the request. And how do we send the request? Very simple, just say xhr.send. All right. Now see, just look at the console. So if I refresh this, there's nothing. But just have a look. The moment I'm going to save the application, I'm just going to save the project. Did you see? Did you see something? Did you see this? Right. And if I just could like broaden this up a little bit, can you see this? The login, the ID, the avatar URL, the same thing. Now you'll see that it's coming from the server to the client, and we have successfully integrated the same thing. Make sense, guys? Does this make sense? Yeah. All right. Now let's make this a little more interesting. Rather, let's make it a little more interesting. So are you ready? If you don't get confused, let's make it a little more interesting. What is the difference if we do it with Axios? Axios is the same thing, but you do not need to write a lot of code for the same. Like it's a shorthand of writing etc. It's a shorthand of writing Ajax. So if you're using Axios, Axios is going to give you like, you do not have to need to use open, or you do not need to, check for status and stuff like that. So that's going to be like pretty easy way of using Axios. So do you want to make it a little more interesting? Let's make it a little more interesting, shall we? Yeah. You ready? Chalo, let's make it a little more interesting. Now, let's say, rather than console logging the response text, what I'm going to do, I am going to get a response, and I'm just going to say const response. Now, see, the data, now you answer me, the data that is coming from server side to client side is in the format of what? String or an object? The data coming from server to client, is it a string or an object? Just have a look on the thing. JSON, it's JSON. And I just told you that JSON is string, right? JSON is string. So the value that is coming from directly from the server to the client, it's going to be what? It's going to be string. Now let's suppose I want to convert it into an object. We can do the same thing which we did in main.js. If you remember, I said JSON.stringify is to convert, or I'm just gonna write it out here. So if you just do stringify is a way to convert the object to string, and there is a reverse of the same which is called as parse. Yeah, which is called as parse, and we are going to convert this string back into object. So we can use something which is called as parse. So let's do that. So I'm just going to come out here and I'm just going to say json.parse. And what I'm going to parse is going to be xhr.response text, which is coming from the server. And now if I actually log this response up, response, and save that, now I should be able to get the values in the form of objects. Can you see that? Yeah. So we are converting this back into object. This, initially it was coming as a string. Now we are converting that back into, array of objects. So I hope this is making sense. Is it making sense, guys? Now I can access this up and put it into, your HTML and stuff like that. So this is like pretty cool stuff that you can do, and you can actually integrate pretty much anything that you want using JavaScript. So JavaScript is like pretty hardcore. Into like you can do a lot of different things using JavaScript. So let's actually make this a little more interesting, shall we? Now we know how to access these values using array of objects. So let's make it something interesting, shall we? Shall we do that? Let's do that. Anna? Let's do that. So let's say what will I do? I'm just going to create an image. So this is going to be a little new for you, for the people who do not know. Okay, how many of you doesn't have any idea about HTML, by the way? How many of you have like no idea on HTML? Just not a little bit of HTML, not even just a little bit, like how to create images, how to create headings and stuff. Even if you don't know that, just give me a no. Guys? Okay, how many of you have a basic idea, like basic idea of HTML? Just the basic idea, like how to create headings, how to create, how to create images and stuff like. So I'm just gonna explain it to you in between. So like this is like a complete different thing apart from Ajax. So what we can do, I'm just gonna tell it to you. We can actually create, let me actually just make it this way. Let's do this way. Let's create an output. All right, let's create an output. And this output is basically an empty string as of now, right? I'm just creating an empty string. And now here, what I'm going to do, I hope you won't mind if I use a very normal for loop. Huh? Just a normal for loop. All right. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to say for I'm writing int as I is equals to, all right, damn. I'm just going to say int let I is equals to 0. I less than, it's exactly the same thing that you might have done in C, in Java, or anything for that matter. So we have the data in response. I'm just going to write it response.length. If you remember, it's an array. So I just told you that this is going to work. All right. So it's going to be response.length, and I'm just going to say I++. So if you just want to be sure what I'm going to do, I'm just going to show it to you. If I just console log response.length, and save that, it's going to give me 30. So it's just 30 users. Sir, can you tell me how to develop about web view application and mobile view application? Yeah, I'll tell it to you, but just give me 1 second. Let me actually complete this up real quick. All right, so I'm just gonna move it to response.length, which is gonna give me 30, as you can see out there. And out there, what I'm going to do, I'm going to loop around with each and everything, right? I'm going to move around with each and everything, and I'm going to create an output, okay? And that output is going to contain the output. So I'm just going to do output. I hope you know about this plus equals. Do you know about this plus equals, guys? Yeah, plus equals. This is the concatenation that you can do. All right. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to write something out here, and I'm just going to say, I'm just going to create a div, and I'm just going to give the class as, let's say user. Okay. So I'm not doing anything hard and fast. I'm just creating stuff. All right. And this way, and out here, I'm just going to append. Just give me 1 second. I'm just going to write, I'm just going to append an image. So I'm just going to say image. I'm just going to create an image tag. And in the image tag, what I'm going to do, I'm going to keep the source as, now see what I'm going to do. In the source, what I'm going to do, I'm just going to put a plus sign, or rather let keep it this way. How to integrate this API in the table format using Bootstrap tables. We can do that, but let me actually print it out first out here. Then I'll explain it to you. Okay, that will make more sense. So in the source, I'm just gonna put it this way. I'm just gonna put in the source. I'm just gonna come out here and I'm just gonna put a plus sign. And in between of the plus sign, what I'm going to give is users. Sorry, not users. It's gonna be I, right? So I is inside the user. So, or rather, I'm just gonna keep it response.length. Let me actually keep it. Let me actually give it this way. Let me actually say response of I dot, and I'm just gonna put it a avatar URL. So if you remember, I had an avatar URL, right? So this is the avatar URL that I have, and I'm just gonna give a width of it. Yeah, I'm just gonna mention the width. So this is just a CSS that I'm gonna use. I'm just gonna say width, which is gonna be 70, height, which is also gonna be 70. Right, so don't get confused with that. So rather let's keep it this way: height as 70 and width as also as 70. So let's keep it this way. Hey, what am I writing? Width is equals to 70, height is equals to 70. Cool beans, guys. I hope you are not getting okay. Let's actually let me I hope you're getting bored with this. So can we simplify this? Can we simplify this? Let's actually make use of JavaScript rather than using HTML. Shall we do that? Let's forget this because this is going to take a lot of time. Let me actually do it for you guys in the case of JavaScript. Shall we do that? Let's make it use of JavaScript rather than using HTML. So what do you think? Let's make it in the different way around. Huh? Let's go different way. So now in here, what I'm going to do, I am going to use JavaScript. All right, I'm just going to use JavaScript. So using JavaScript, you can create elements. Like if you have an image element and if you have a div element, you can create that as well. So let's say, what do I want to do? I can just come out here and I can be like const image. And I can just come out here. This is a part of DOM. I'm not going to explain or just not going to go around it, but I can just come out here and create element by just saying document dot create element, and inside that, whatever element I just want to create, I can just get that out, right? And from this image, I can set values for the same. I can just be like image dot set attribute, and in this, I'm just going to put the source attribute as the response of I dot avatar URL. All right. So I have a image, and then I'm also going to create const kya bana sakte hain? Let's make a p. So let's make a para, and I'm just gonna do the same thing, document dot create element, and I'm just gonna say let's make it p, a paragraph, and then I'm just gonna say para dot set attribute, which is going to be, or let me actually just give it dot inner HTML is going to be, let's say, the value that is coming from the response. So I'm just going to keep it response dot, what was the value? I guess it was the login. So I'm just going to keep the login, response of I dot login. All right. So I have the login, and before that, I'm just going to do the ID as well. So I'm just going to keep it para2. I'm just going to keep this para2 dot inner HTML. And before that, I'm just going to create another para. So I'm going to call this para1. I'm just going to call this para1 dot inner HTML is equals to the ID. All right. Now at the end, I'm just going to put this in the body, or before that, putting in the body, and I'm just going to say document dot body dot append child, and I'm just gonna give the value of the image first, the image, and then I'm just gonna copy this out. I'm just gonna explain it to you. Don't worry what I'm doing. I'm just gonna explain it to you. This is a part of DOM. So I'm just gonna put image. I'm just gonna put a para1. And then I'm just gonna put a para2 as well. And before that, let me actually go around and create a ruler. I'm just gonna say const ruler is equals to document dot create element of the HR. So it will be created, and I'm just gonna put it in the body. I'm just gonna say document dot body dot append child the ruler. Right now, if I save this, can you see something? Can you see something? It's looking horrible as of now. We can do a lot of CSS. I'm not using CSS, but you can see that we didn't had any data, or we didn't had any database, but we still are getting data out from, something like this. Can you see that? And I'm looping around with all of the data which was coming in the form of string. I converted it back into an object, and I'm gonna use this as something like this. Does this make sense? Is it making sense, guys? Yeah, make sense? Cool, great. Oh, all right. So let me actually give you an idea that how you can create applications out of it like this. So I'm just gonna say Adil dot. Or I'm just gonna say github.com slash users slash Adil. Or what's his username? Because it's a horizontal line, as you could see out there, the horizontal line that we have. Just a horizontal line. We just have a line out there, right? So that's like the ruler part. So if I go to the home, let me actually just go to Adil's website. Yeah, it's a horizontal rule. And if I could just go to his GitHub. So do you remember I just showed you a project, like the Netflix wala project? Do you remember that? The very first project that I showed you. Yeah. So let me actually give it the source code. So in the source code, if you'll see that any of the JavaScript file, even for the books, even for the movies, or even for, let's go to the movies.js. So if you'll see out here, what he has done basically, it's using the same thing, which is like let xhr is equals to new XML HTTP request. Then it's putting the URL, then it's opening the connection and getting the URL, and then on ready state change. On ready state change and onload is basically the same thing. And then it's making the function, and it's again checking the same thing, that if the xhr.status is 200, then he's doing something depending upon the same. Can you see that? Right? And the whole application is basically revolving around the same thing. But what he's doing is just using HTML, CSS, Bootstrap, not exactly Bootstrap, just HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, and a little bit of Ajax, and it's building a beautiful application out of it. I hope this is making sense what I'm trying to explain you. Is it making sense, guys? Yeah. So you'll see that in the end, it's just Ajax which is coming into picture. So let me do one thing. Let me actually push this whole code into my GitHub. Do you need the code, by the way? Do you need the whole code? If you want the code, like it contains a little bit of JavaScript and a little bit of Ajax. So if you remember the code, I'm just going to push this out and give you the repository if you want. Okay, so let me do that. So let me actually push this up on Git. So I'm just going to say git init. I'm just going to call this as GitHub clone. I'll just share it to you. Don't worry. And I'm just going to say, let me actually create a repo for you people. What should I call the repo as? New repo. And let's call this GitHub clone. And oh, chalo, मैंने उसको GitHub clone बोल दिया. It's one and the same thing. Sir, in HTML, which one is easy to close? Flexbox is a grid. If you're using Bootstrap grids is like more easier as compared to Flexboxes. So you can use anything that you want. M1 Mac or Intel Mac. It's a Intel Mac. It's a MacBook Pro. It's a 2019 MacBook Pro. Cool. So I hope you can access the URL. Just go through it. If you want to start it, you can start it. If you want to clone it, you can clone it. If you want to download the code, you can download the codes and stuff like that. Yeah. One thing more, I just wanted to share you out with the Innomatics YouTube ka page now. Just give me 1 second. Let me actually open the YouTube part. Just 1 second. I'll show you on the screen, huh? Just give me 1 second. So what are we supposed to see? The Innomatics Research Labs. GitHub, right? Cool beans. So let me share you out with that. So this is the YouTube channel that we have. And you could see out here we have a lot of different things. We built a Twitter stream API if you want to do that. We have also done RESTful APIs using Node.js and Express. So just in case if you'll be interested, you can go around with the videos. You'll also find a few data science videos if you're interested in that. You can go around with that as well. Your story on how you got into Apple. All right, so that's like a very boring story. So if you're just source code of the GitHub link, I just shared it out with you, I guess. This is the GitHub link, guys. Right, this is where you can find out the code. All right, if you want to start it, you can start it. If you want to like do it whatever you want, you can just do it. Like it's completely up to you. Yeah, the very good content that I can just give it to you, it's gonna be the MDN official documentation. So if you just do JavaScript MDN, this is the like official documentation. This is the Mozilla Developers Network, and you'll find everything out here. So it's like good content for learning JavaScript if you're in, you know. I'm not able to understand MDN. Any advice? Yeah, pata kya? I'll just tell you. You should, you should actually follow MDN. The reason I always ask people to follow MDN is just because this is the official documentation. You can see it's exactly like, okay. Let me ask you one thing. Now let's do a social experiment. How many of you have learned C? Be honest. How many of you have learned C? How many of you know how to code in C? Others? But just 3 people. 4, 5. Okay. So, okay, let's do a social experiment. What was the book that you were referring to? Where were you learning C from? I'm pretty sure you might be learning something from Let Us See or Let Us See. Exactly. I knew it. I definitely knew it. So in that case, if I ask you, does Yashwant Kanitkar know more about C, or does the Dennis Ritchie who invented C would be knowing more about it? Think about it. Who would be knowing more? Dennis Ritchie or Yashwant Kanitkar? Yashwant Kanitkar was a user. Dennis Ritchie was the creator. But I don't know why people don't want to learn from official sources, because see, these are official sources. The reason is that these are the people who created. Manoj says Yashwant Kanitkar would be knowing about. Maybe, I don't know. Never met him. I'll be more than happy if he'd be knowing C more than Dennis Ritchie, who's the creator of C. Okay. So I'll highly will recommend, guys. Pata hai kya? Teaching method. It's up to you. See, everybody has Stack Overflow. Do you have Stack Overflow? Can you access Stack Overflow? Can you? But the point is, there are a lot of things. Okay, how many of you know about a header file called as conio.h? How many of you know about the header file called as conio.h? Have you heard? Now, I'll just tell you the side effects. See, literally, I do not know about it, right? I don't know about conio.h. But conio is not an official library of C. If you'll go around and Google it out for anyone, you'll see that the conio.h is not a standard library. It was never included in C. It was never included in C. It was a part of Turbo C, which you used to use because Yashwant Kanitkar asked you to do it. It's stdlib.h, which is a standard library, which is used for, all these input output stuff. But just because Yashwant Kanetkar used it, everybody started using it. So this is the part which hampers to a lot of students. So that is one of the reasons I'm giving it to you. Yeah, exactly. Correct. So rather it's exactly like when you even write C out in C in, you actually need to put it as, the standard sources. You have to say use std as to, like something like that. I'm not going to go inside that, but I'm just trying to make it a point that always have a habit of learning from official sources. The reason is you can actually rely to their whatever they're saying. I can be just like coming out and be like, what, I'm an expert on, let's say, C or whatever that I want to be, right? And you will, from today onwards, you'll start believing in me. So that's not how it works. You should be able to rectify content from somewhere on the internet, and you should have reliable sources for the same. MDN is the same. If you're learning JavaScript, you can pretty much find anything that you want. So if you go to just JavaScript guide and you'll start with the introduction, it's going to give you pretty much everything that you want. So like, it even covers out like a topic, which is like a difference between JavaScript and Java, which MDN knows that there is going to be a lot of conflict, because a lot of people here think that Java and JavaScript are somehow related, which they are not, right? So in that case, this is also something that he has covered out totally, saying, I'm just going to explain you JavaScript and Java differences, right? It's object-oriented programming. It's object-oriented. So like there is a lot of, so you can see a lot of things, right? Source code of the Netflix project. Yeah, you can get it. That's fine. If you want it, you can access it. So you can go through the project. And if you feel like making something like this, I'll be more than happy that you will be making. So I hope everyone got the YouTube link. I'll just tell you how to master core Java. Core Java. So for core Java, I'll say get into Oracle's website and you'll get a lot of things. If somebody would be needing more URLs, do let me know. Okay, so okay, how many of you, yeah, are you like seriously interested in knowing about me? There's nothing much to know about me, by the way. You want to? Are you sure? It's gonna be like a boring story. So like initially I was like okay in studies, then I just like a normal student, I also wrote IIT's paper. Luckily I got into IIT Bombay, and I've done my BTech from IIT Bombay, by the way. And I was an IITian, so like I went there, I started studying, and then like in like third semester I got in the fifth semester I got the opportunity for interning at Apple. That was through, hope are you? No, I'm not actually. I'm kind of not. It's like mixed up stuff. So I sometimes go to office, sometimes I don't. So it was like I started interning with Apple when I was like in fifth semester of my BTech. And no, it's not like that, but it's like it was more of a like a, what I can just say that I'm most proud of is that I'm a self-made developer. Like it's not something that I was reliant on something, or maybe like my things or something like that. So I learned everything from my own. And once you start, trust me guys, just as an older brother for you, I can just tell you that a self-made person who learns everything by himself, or just maybe takes a little advice here and there, but the whole thing is that you will be the people who will have to do all the mehnat wala kaam. So you cannot be relying on how I'm not able to clear the interviews because the basics are not clear. Once the basics are good, trust me, you can crack any interview for that matter. If you're good with data structures, algorithms, and problem solving, and if you're good with like maybe React, Angular, or web development, trust me, you can even get into Apple, Google. Like these are not something like big achievements to get on to. And I'm not just saying because I've made it through. I'm not like that, but I'm being honest. Like I've made people go to Google, I've made people go to Apple. Like this is the reason I teach students, right? It's really big for our tier 3. It's not like that. See, the first thing is the mentality that you got, that oh, I'm in tier 3 company, oh sorry, in a tier 3 college, what I'm gonna do. Guys, think big. The moment from the day you'll start thinking big and you're working big. Okay, how many of you are appearing for gate? Let's go there. How many of you are appearing for gate? Exactly. That's what I'm saying. You don't dream big. If you know that if you give the gate paper, you get a lot of opportunities just by showing the gate card. Do you know that? That even if you're talking about Apple or all of these top-notch companies, the moment they'll be looking into your gate scores, they'll be like, hey, please come and work with us. So why are you not preparing for gate? Go and prepare for gate. The point here is that you are scared. You are scared that what's going to happen when I'll be writing the paper. अरे क्या हो जाएगा, like ज़्यादा क्या हो जाएगा, you'll not make it out, but at least you prepared. And once you start to prepare with this, yeah, it's the best. Like if you're preparing for gate and you give gate, you get a lot of opportunities from different companies as well. Start preparing for gate, guys. Like if you actually want to go into like all these big companies, you start to prepare gate and you just show their gate scores and they'll be like, hey, please come and work with us, right? That's like pretty cool. And see, trust me, what will happen, see, touch wood, I just hope that doesn't happen with you. Let's suppose if you don't get in, what would be the worst case scenario? But at the end of the day, if you look at the bright side, you prepared for it, you are ready for to give an interview to any of the MNCs. Even if you wanted, you're good with OS, you're good with CN, you're good with DBMS, you're good with data structures, you're good with algorithms, you're pretty much good with everything because you have learned all of these things for gate. Now you're prepared to give the interviews for any of the things, right? Or even if you're getting not to the cutoff for getting into MTech, and that's not the case that every gate aspirant is going to do MTech, but even if you get a good cutoff, like even if you don't meet the right criteria of NITs and IITs, that's fine. But you get a score, and that score would be a good enough to start from a basic MNC, and then go around and prepare for all of these big MNCs for over and over again, and keep giving gates. Like it's not a problem, right? So you can do that while preparing for a full stack dev. So the challenge is typically once what I got initially that um, uh, I was very stuck into like what technology that I should get into. But once I actually cleared up my mind, and typically I'm a SME, but also I'm too much into operating systems and designing iOS and designing operating systems. So that's what I'm best at, I'll say. Like this is something that I've learned of my own. Like it's not something which is taught in the college. Like even if you talk about the basic BTech, they don't teach you how to do full stack wala kaam, right? um, Difference between SME and software developer. So SME is a person who is into both the ends. Like he's into development end as well. Like I design applications and I design operating systems as well. Plus I am into management, like taking interviews, like getting into technical domains and stuff like that. So I'm also into like I've taken interviews for Apple, and I've also like designed iOS. So that's like both the ends of the thing. What do you look in a candidate? Honestly speaking, if he is good with basics, and if he like could have a good knowledge of the basics, like for example, if you're good with data structures algorithm, and if you're good with problem solving, and if you're good with any of the stack of that you're getting into job for, that's what we are. And yes, the PI wala part is more important for us as compared to the technical part. Like if you're not a good team player, so most probably no matter how good you're with the technical prospect, we're not going to hire you any which ways. So if you are good with both the ends, like from the personal end and from the professional end, yes, then that's going to be the good blend for all of these MNCs, right? So should be a good team player, and you should be eager to learn. So if you're eager to learn and you know already all of these things, I'm into SaaS as of now, like debug. SaaS is also like pretty cool. Like you can design stuff using SaaS. You can do a lot of things on Bootstrap using SaaS. So I'll say just start to learn with the few frameworks out there. Maybe start with React and then use SaaS and React and stuff like that. So that's gonna be like more helpful for you. I'm a designer, want to become a software developer. Always got stuck in the questions in the interview. As a sort, see, I'll tell you the biggest problem that I feel students face in the interviews is the data structures and algorithm parts. And that is one of the reasons. I'm just gonna show you something, like don't keep it or don't mind it in the other way around. But if I could just like give it to you, where is it? Where is it? Where is it? Where is it? TFA. Where have I kept it? Let me actually just open this up. I think I've like kept it like somewhere here. Yeah, no. So I hope you guys can see this. I hope you guys, I was the one who designed the syllabus, by the way. So I designed the syllabus. So if you'll just have a look on the syllabus part, the reason I have kept this, so you could see that we have like introduction to HTML, CSS, JavaScript, Ajax, React. So, and after that, so this is what we did, like just a small little thing out here. I didn't introduce you to Postman, I think, and I didn't introduce you to asynchronous backend. I think we have done pretty much the same thing. We have version control, and then you could see out here Java programming and problem solving. And the reason I kept it out here is that I just want students to get a good idea of, yeah, you'll get it, don't worry, you can get it from the you can get it from the Innomatics key websites, and you can get it out from there. So you'll see that I'm starting from basics, and I'm going to intermediate, and then I'm going to do the exception handling wala part, then the databases, file handling, JDBC, and all of these things. Now, after that, you will see the problems solving wala part. Can you see that? This is the most important part for us. Like, this is what we are more interested in, because generally I have no idea about it. Honestly speaking, I have no idea about it. Yeah, the DA part. So this is all the DA wala part. This is DA, design and analysis of algorithm. So a lot of people, like, let's take a quick social experiment. How many of you know about greedy algorithms and dynamic programming? Greedy algorithms and dynamic programming. How many are good at it? Like, I'm just not saying that you might have heard about it. Like, how many of you know how to work on greedy algorithms and dynamic programming? Like, if you know that, I'll just say you're good with the interview. Right? Recursion ho gaya, aapka greedy algorithm, dynamic programming, graphs, GraphQLs, GraphK algorithms like Digistra, and all of these things. These matters, right? These matters in the interview. And if you're not good at it, trust me, no matter how good you are at, like in the framework wala part, it's not gonna do the job for you. And this is where the people get stuck in the interviews. All right. So yeah, that's the case. I hope you got an idea, or if you have any questions, you can put that question in chat section. That's fine. Ask, please ask. Like, we have a little bit of a time, 5 to 10 minutes. Self-learning roadmap. Self-learning roadmap. These days, see, companies are expecting a lot of things from you. Self-learning is going to be a little more difficult for you these days, because the benchmark has been set to a complete different level. How to get into Apple? Okay, yeah, you can get into Apple. You can just go to a things called jobs.apple.com, and in here you'll find a lot of career paths and career things that you can go out from here. All right, I applied, no reply from the HR. Then work on yourself. I'll say then work on yourself. Maybe you were not eligible for the job role, or maybe the job role that you applied for maybe would be something completely different that you applied for. Maybe they were looking for some experienced people and you were not experienced enough for the same. Maybe 5 years in service based. Yeah. Are you 5 years in service based? If you are not, then I didn't, you are? Oh, I didn't know that. Okay, so that depends. That depends on the kind of like the job that you did in your like last way. That would have been like completely different that we do out there. OMG, OMG about what? Kya hua? Are you okay? Chalo. So do you have like any other questions? So if you have, you can put in the chat section. For someone who's like from another background, I'll say start with, I'll from my opinion, I'll say start with full stack development. The reason is this seems fancy for people. You know, and this is like more easier way of learning things rather than going into software development, because software development you'll be getting to get a lot of things. For example, you should be knowing computer networks, you should be knowing operating systems, you should be knowing a lot of different things. So software development is like more of like more into technical and more codey, I'll say. But when it comes to, you know, your full stack development, it's less code as compared to software development, and it's easier to learn for a new beginners. For the people who are from computer science background, they'll relate to this, right, guys? Do you agree with me? It's like more easier part as compared to the software development, where you're sitting and you're making, you know, advanced Java projects, so you're working on J2EE architecture and stuff like that. So that's like more complicated part. But full stack is more like a easygoing part. You can do it like with less code and stuff like that. What tools to use? Like tools in like what sense? Like, can you be like more precise with the question? Like tools for what? Tools for what? Tools for programming? Up to you. Up to you. For programming, you can use VS Code. Just VS Code. Like if you are into web development or full stack development, you will be using just VS Code. But if you are into backend development and you're doing the backend like I do, if I just do the backend development in Java, this is the application that I use mostly. This is called as IntelliJ IDEA. I don't know how many of you might have heard about it. So this is the only thing that you'll be requiring extra, nothing apart from that, right? So just IntelliJ IDEA for if you're going to go into Java wala backend, then you'd be using IntelliJ IDEA, or else just, VS Code is going to be more than sufficient for you if you're for that. Yeah, IntelliJ is like the best IDE that I love for Java, because I designed a lot of backends on Java, like on Spring Boot and Spring MVC. So yeah, even the reason I've also kept, if you'll just go to the backend wala part, I've kept the backend. Can you see this? I've kept the backend in Java because that's like more, the learning curve in Java is like, yeah, it's the best backend that you can design, because you learn pretty much everything, like the conventional way of using servlets, JSPs, and servlet containers, and then coming to the Spring Boot, framework, and doing the ORMs, Hibernate, and integrating a SQL database and a no SQL database. We can do pretty much anything in this case. So it gives you a lot of, I don't know. I think the concerned person will reach you out most probably like in a day or two. You can ask any queries that you'll be having related to the course. I have no idea about the fee of the course. I'll say this whole program that we have made it for the course of 4 to 5 months. And trust me, if you can give us your 4 to 5 months, because I'll be the one who will be taking care of the course. This course I'm going to take care of. So in that case, if you can give me your 5 to 6 months or 4 to 5 months, and you could promise that you are going to be willing to learn out of it, where can I learn greedy algorithm and dynamic programming for? There is a book for algorithms. There is a book which is by Corman. Have you seen that book? Corman wali book for DA. Okay, they have a book. This is a standard book, and don't get scared by looking at this. Oh no, ये तो बहुत easy language में लिखी हुई है यार. It's like book that you can get for data structures and designing and DA wala part. So this is like the best book. Like honestly speaking, like I've done my whole data structures algorithms from this book standalone. Trust me on that. This is the best book that you'll get, and you'll find out the PDF like online. You can go around and download that. That could be like pretty cool stuff. You can do that. Okay, guys. Huh? Okay. So what we are expecting, I most probably will be expecting nothing. So that is why I've written out here. Even you'll go out from here. Even if you'll see that I'm not expecting any prerequisites from even anything, but just a little bit of programming in HTML skills is going to help you out. But even if you don't have it, I'm going to start from very, very scratch. Most probably I will do that. So we'll do with all the HTML wala kaam first, and then we'll go to the CSS wala part. And then I think this is not the updated one. I think, no, this is not the updated one. So if I just go to docs, let me actually go to my docs. Just give me 1 second. Huh? I think this one is the updated. No, I think this is not the updated one. I think this is the one. I think so. Weekends or weekdays, up to you. Depends on your batch, honestly. Why doesn't have both? So okay, after CSS we'll be doing Bootstrap, and then we'll start with JavaScript, and then we'll do the Ajax, then we'll do the React, then we'll do. Okay, how many of you know how to work on Git? I have no. For weekdays, it's going to be for 2.5 to 3 hours every day, Monday to Friday. That's going to be the duration for 4 to 5 months. All right. So you'll be using version control, which is going to be Git and GitHub. I'm going to tell you how to host applications on GitHub pages, use Git. I hope that you just saw me do something out here. Did you see that? And it automatically got uploaded to GitHub. I didn't have to work on anything. I just wrote few commands and everything got inserted, as you could see out here. I just pushed everything out here onto GitHub clone and everything got created like automatically. You do not need to do anything. Like this is like Git. Okay, so we're also going to learn Git out here. Then after that, it's going to be like Java programming and problem solving, wherein we'll be covering out the Java part first, and then we'll be doing the core Java by JDBC, file handling and stuff like that. And then we'll come to the Davala part, which is going to be the problem solving. And then there will be a few projects that will be based on stuff. And after that, we are going to make you sit on HackerEarth and HackerRank. I hope you have an idea about HackerEarth and HackerRank. Do you have an idea about that? Yeah. So it's kind of like a place where, you know, you can practice all of your data structures algorithm. They give you a real life problem statement and you should be able to solve it if you're doing data structures and stuff. Yeah, the course is both front end and back end. So after that, we'll be giving you system designs, for example, MVC, how load balancers works and stuff like that. How to solve the question. Yeah, so that will be covered out here in this part wherein we'll be doing projects on Java programming and problem solving. So HackerEarth wala course. Up to you, Tushar. Like if you feel like that, yeah, this is what you're looking for, then I'll say that, yeah, this is the course for you. I have no idea, Raghu. I have no idea about that. Concerned people will get in touch with you. You can ask these cost wala questions from them, those people. I have like no idea about it. All right. So then next is going to be, yeah, the placement assistance. We have an in-house placement team and we'll be making you assistants for the same thing. Now, again, I'm not going to say that you will be placed or we are going to guarantee that. Like nobody can do that, honestly speaking. It's up to you. That's what I'm saying. If you could devotingly give me 4.5 months, trust me, you will be at a place wherein you can crack any MNC interviews. That is something that I can tell you. Rest, we are not giving you any surety on that key. You will get placed or stuff like that because we know. And the reason we didn't keep any surety and stuff like that was the reason that there could be just students who are not willing to work and be like, okay, you know what, Innomatics is going to take care of my interviews or it's going to take care of my placement. So I'm not worried. What should I learn? If you're eager, if you're a good learner, trust me on a fact, we have an in-house placement team. We have made a lot of placements. You can just go on to the LinkedIn and you can go around and look at the history and stuff like that. So I'm not going to give you an surety on anything. So it's like, depends on your interest and depends on how you have worked in. That's what I'm saying. Just go to the LinkedIn. You will find a lot of history of the placements and stuff like that. And then around like 15, 20, generally like, or at max 20, 25, not more than that. Not more than that. And then we have a dedicated Discord channels. You can DM me up out there. You can do a lot of stuff. So yeah, you can DM me up on LinkedIn. That's fine. I'm pretty open on LinkedIn, so that's fine. Even if you DM me, I'm most probably gonna reply you out. So that's fine. Okay, so all right, guys. So I hope this is like I think it's been around like 2 hours or so. So if you do you have like any doubts? If you have doubts, put in the chat section. If you're good, just give me a big yes. Most probably we'll end up with this slide. Oh, LinkedIn ID. I'm just gonna share it out with you. LinkedIn. Okay, it's in here. Oh, is it asking you to pay? Oh, I don't know. Okay, just share me a request. If you'll just request me and if I'll accept it, you'll be able to DM me, I guess. Yeah, I just share me a request. I'll just accept it and then you can DM me. Okay. All right. So any more doubts? Any more doubts? I'll just check it just after the session. I'm gonna accept all the requests. Okay, so we good? Are we good? If you're good, just give me a big yes, and then we'll end up with the session. Yeah, we good? Chalo, nice, great. So that was a wrap. Thank you so much for joining. I hope you learned something out of the session. I hope the session was informative for you people. And thank you so much for joining. That's all I can say. And stay in touch. And if there would be anything that could be done from our side, most welcome. All right. Chalo. Bye-bye, guys. Take care. Don't go out and stay safe. All right. Chalo. Bye-bye, guys. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.